Welcome along. This is episode 1, but it's the second one that I've recorded. So episode 1 of the Over the Hill podcast is what it's going to be called. And my guest today doesn't really need an introduction, but I'm giving him one anyway. Someone that inspired me at the start of my journey through not just being a DJ, but a proper DJ and getting more and more into house music, and someone that I listened to. We were on the same station when I was super young, and someone that I'm really happy I'm going to be able to sit down and have a long conversation with, without interruptions of, being in a club environment or something like that. My guest today is none other than the one and only Mr. Sai Says. Sai, how are you, mate?
Good afternoon, Jay.
It's lovely to see you, albeit through the medium of Zoom.
Yeah, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, it's interesting that we've sort of stumbled upon this time to do this podcast, because it comes at a time where we've all had a lot of positive news over the last couple of days with regards to things opening back up. And I've seen just even today, as we speak, you've posted on your socials about a lot of the events that are going to be kicking off again. And, how many bookings are going to be flooding in now that, we've kind of got dates where we're looking to be back in with the rest of society. So
sure.
How has it been for you? I know it's been up and down the last year because there were some events last year and whatnot in a kind of a halfway sort of sense. But how was the last year been for you, with regards just to maintaining a sense of normality?
Pretty crazy, to be honest. Tough at the start to adapt to it, but good. It's been actually just crazy. It's been like a double-edged sword. On one side, it's been, obviously, I've lost all my gigs, basically, like most of us did, DJs that do working DJs, especially in the summer when I'm traveling a lot.
Yeah.
Because I do this for a living, I've got the whole year scheduled out with my agent and stuff like that. Not every day of the year, but you can look ahead quite a lot. So to have all that go boom, not just in your own country, but it's not like then you could go, all right, well, I'll just crack on in Ibiza, or I'll crack on in Croatia, or I'll go to Italy, or it all was gone. It was all gone. So at the start, it was very difficult to try and adapt to it. But then eventually there would be like small little things. I was doing the odd like paid gig with Soul Heaven, but we were doing like a live, one of these like monetized live stream things of people called Clubify TV with like big names like Barbara Tucker, the Shapeshifters, Jimpster, people like that. So there's stuff like that. Then I was doing like a lot of these brunches that came about, and social distancing things, and it's good because again it was money in the pocket, but it makes you realise as a DJ what you really started to do this thing for, and it's not always the money, even though it's my livelihood. Is like you crave that energy that you have with the people, going to a club where people can dance, playing music to people who are dancing, not just sitting down and being told. And some of these brunches I was doing, it was like people started to get up and dance. You'd literally have bouncers getting proper aggy, telling people to sit down, like the dance is going to get locked off if you don't.
Well, the thing is, that's their livelihood and the bar manager's livelihood and stuff like that. And it's one of the things that I know we'll probably talk about him a little bit on the podcast anyway. But Jalen hit me up last year about coming and doing some of his events, and it was one of them things where I really want to come and play, and I want to be part of the team, and I want to hang out with all of you guys and everything else, but I want to do it properly. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not one of these people that I understand the need for the restrictions. I understand the trouble. Like my experiences with this past year and COVID and everything else, it's not been great. So I'm quite cautious in that sense anyway, but I didn't want to come and do something that felt half-hearted, because I want to give the best of me to an event with people that I enjoy being around, So to be able to come and do a night with the likes of you, Eamon, Wes, who I've known for a long time, and obviously Jay as well, it's like, I want it to be proper, and what you were saying about, like, the vibe's not really the same because people are sitting around and stuff. And I just can't wait to see how happy people are when we do go out.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to lie, I have done parties where there has been dancing again, because I'm a worker. Like what I do, like music is my like I'm basically self-employed, and music is my livelihood, my full livelihood, and a high percentage of my yearly earnings is done through DJing. So obviously there's the production aside and the other engineering, the other stuff that I do that's related to. I also work for a record label. I have my own record label now, so I've got different strings in the bow as such, but the bulk of the money comes from DJing. And also when you're in my position with my agent and things like that, our best work is done in the summer because we're traveling and we're out of the UK, right? So I'm getting better money in when I go to Ibiza, when I go to Croatia, like I said before, if I'm going to the Caribbean, wherever you go internationally, it's better money, better deals. So, you know, it was a big loss. But like I said, on the other edge of the sword, it gave me time to build things that I've been wanting to build for years that I hadn't had the opportunity because I'm so busy as a DJ, especially in the summer, that I haven't thrown myself into launching my own record label, to starting my artist agency, and to things like that. And also to, I mean, I've always released music, as you know, but because I was so busy DJing, I'd never had like proper time to throw myself in to be a producer. Even though I have released music for years, as you know, as Aphrodisiacs and as myself, but during lockdown, I've been more productive as a writer, as a producer than I've ever been. So I now have this whole body of works and a record label and an agency that I started in lockdown. So, you know, even through all the shit that happened and all the madness, and, you know, it's not just, oh, no, I don't want to come on your podcast and sound like I'm moaning because I lost all DJ gigs and I lost my work, because everybody else was in the same boat. But more so, I lost friends like during COVID, died, do you know what I mean? To COVID, and not just to COVID, to other stuff that have just all of a sudden just passed away like that. Like my good friend Phil Asher, God rest him, that passed only a couple of weeks ago, just out of the blue like that. Another friend of mine 2 weeks before Phil, Leon, who was a part of a brand called Nyan Badeep in London. He again just passed away, just clicked like that. So, you know, I don't want to be sitting on there moaning about what I lost in a sense to DJ gigs. So I know, like, during what we've all been going through for the last year and a half, people have like had a lot worse things happen. You know, I've seen a lot of I've just put the worst part of all of our lives, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah, I think so. And it's interesting your attitude about it there, because it's like you're still being able to take chicken shit and turn it into chicken salad. Do you know what I mean? You're being able to like, you're able to sit there and go, right, this is the situation I'm in. Let's not fret and let's not moan about it. What can I do to better myself when I come out of this? And I think a lot of people have gone down that road in whatever industry they're in. And I'm really, really happy that you have finally gone and got yourself your own platform to do your own thing. Because I know, and we'll touch on your history of music and stuff anyway, but I know that you've spent so much time working for other people's labels and doing stuff for other people.
Sure.
You know, and I always felt that you, knowing your skills, your talent, the way you are just around people, and your music selection and everything else, it's like, I always looked at it as like, why were you never bigger? And I think this could be, for me personally, in my view, this should be and could be a real good opportunity for you to go in not in a different direction as such, but you've got more tools in the box now, where it's like, right, this is my platform, we're back to normal now, watch me. Like, and I'm really, really hopeful that this new label, which again we'll go into more detail on, but I'm really, really happy you're doing it, and I'm really hopeful for you. And the music in itself
means a lot to me, mate.
I was talking to do you remember Pure Cut P?
Yeah.
He rang me the other night. Obviously, he's my best friend going way back. And he said to me, he's like, bro, he's like, you know, the only person whose music I'm listening to at the minute. And I was like, no, who? And he was like, Sire. And I was like, all right, it's interesting you say that, because with me and Sire are going to have a catch up. Yeah. So, but again, like, I mean, for me, the best record of last year was the track with Raf, What in the World. I mean, it summed up, you know, the mood at the time. It summed up what was happening at the time. Like, that guy's so fucking talented, bruv. Like, it's mad. So I'm really happy you're doing it. How many guys have you already got signed? Because I know you've got records ready to come out and your own stuff, you know, now, and you've only just had the first one out. You've got like, is it like a Santa sack full of records that are ready to go or what?
Yeah, basically, I've got to say, I've been, again, you know, it's quite overwhelming to hear you talk about it, because you know, I've known you from a long, long time. Obviously, we'll talk about that later, but like going back to like World FM, big up M Tech and all them people.
Yeah.
That is a long, long time ago in my journey. So for you to say what you just said about, you know, all the other people I've worked for, and now this is my time and coming out of lockdown, bam, bam, bam. Everything you said there has really resonated. It's very, very true. But it's been good, because obviously all them other times I've learned from the best to now take that into my label. I've been working for Defected for the last like 7-8 years with Soul Heaven, because obviously they own Soul Heaven. I'm an A&R manager at Soul Heaven. So I've learned from like the best label that there is, in my opinion, in house music, for like the actual whole machine of it. But yeah, going back to my label, Razor Records, yeah, I've got basically the whole year stacked out now, because what it was just going to start out as just a platform for my own label, right? So all the projects that I've been doing with people like Lifford, right? I don't know if you've heard of Lifford, or you know who he is, the singer. Yep. He's famous for singing Please Don't Turn Me On back in the day with Arthur Dodger, but he's one of the baddest singers in the UK, in my opinion. I've got tracks with Raf and the guy from the House Gospel Choir. Signed a track from the New Tech Music guys, which is my mate DJ Lee Marks and his dad Kenny Reds, rest in peace. And they done a track with Robert Owens, which I signed as well, which I remixed actually, and then they asked me to put the remix out. And then I'm also teamed up with a lot of London artists, right? So I'm really passionate about the homegrown talent, not in like, you know, a territorial way or anything, but I feel like sometimes, like you said about me, the English, the London talent doesn't get as pushed as much, even sometimes by our own. We don't push our own much. So I'm quite passionate about like the spoken word and poetry scene in London. I've got a lot of links into that. So I've done a series of tracks with some incredible poets. One that I've had a release with already, a girl called Ayaba, the next one called Natalie, Natural Right, and another poet called Yanae. So yeah, it's all like kind of like spoken word stuff. So I've got all the singing stuff, then like a little bit of the spoken stuff, and loads of remixes. Like since I've started the label, I've had a lot of people come to me and want to get involved. It's been quite overwhelming and asking to remix stuff. So I've been very fortunate. I've been able to give out remixes on spec to some up and coming producers, as well as like some established ones. So I've got a good catalogue, man. A really nice catalogue of stuff that's going to come.
Is the next one Wes Wint? Is he coming up next?
Yeah. So the next one will be Wes. And like I said at first, when I was doing it, it was just going to be a platform for all my stuff, because I've got loads of my own projects. And we've got a track with Tess Leah as well, a girl called Tess Leah, which is going to be part of my Mind State project, which we done What in the World with. So my Mind State project, that's going to live on Raising Records as well. But what I'm trying to do with the label, like I said, it's basically going to be like an old school vibe, where I'm not just taking tracks and pissing in the wind and going, oh, I'll put that out this month and done. I'm trying to build something in-house. I want to build a stable. You know, it's like back in the day when you buy a record vinyl, there's certain labels like had a little bit of a stable. You knew that this one was going to come. They're not nervous, you know.
Soul Channel, Unrestricted Access, all them labels, yeah. Yeah,
they all had certain artists, to be honest. They'd all been Mr. V, Alex Alvarez and that on there. Or if you went over to Strictly Rhythm, you knew that it was more this sound. And it was kind of like a stable of artists. So that's what I'm trying to build up. And also for them for all these artists to link up with each other. So someone to remix one person's project and blah, 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 you know. So that's kind of happening now. Yeah, so the next one, going back to what you said, is going to be the Wes Wint track, which is a cover track of, it's called You Will Know, the original track. It was done by BMU, aka the Black Men United.
Yep.
And this was like a big record in like 95, I think, or 96, don't quote me on that. But it was basically 42 of the biggest R&B singers, male R&B singers, came together to do this. I think it features on a film like Jacob's Lyric or something like that. But you had like everyone, like D'Angelo wrote the song, and then you had like Tevin Campbell, like Usher, Blackstreet, a whole loads of names. I've forgotten so many of them. But like, check it out, like Google it, BMU, You Will Know. So basically Wes has done a cover of it with 3 singers, 2 guys from South Africa, Earl and Nixon, and a guy from London called Jason Nicholson Porter. Incredible singers. Like Wes has really, like, he's gone in. This is going to be a big record. Like, you're going to see some of the biggest DJs in the world like pick up on this. He's worked with the session player for the track is a guy called Ziggy Funk. Who's quite
I know who Ziggy is, yeah.
Yeah, he's an incredible musician. He's played like live bass on it, live guitar, played the keys, produced by Wes. And it's all been done during lockdown. So like the track's been sent to South Africa, one part, Johannesburg, to be recorded, then sent to Pretoria, then it's come to London to get recorded. So you're hearing like 3 male singers on the track. It's a big production, man. So yeah, that's going to be the next release after my new release, which came out the other day.
Yeah, what a tune. What a tune. I was talking to, as I was saying earlier, you know, I recorded a podcast yesterday with DJ BQ from True FM. And we were talking about people, like you say, sort of like when you're talking about looking after London artists and stuff and kind of paying it forward, you know, paying it forward and paying it back to the roots that that you come from. And I was saying like, your tune came up because I was like, yeah, my mate Sire, like I'm doing a podcast with him tomorrow. I could hit him up easily and say like, oh, can you send me that tune? But I went and bought the tune on Traxels because it's like, support the game. Do you know what I mean? Like be with your people,
appreciate
you know.
that,
So,
man.
but bruv, do you know what it is? I heard the clips of it and I was like, I need it anyway. I just need the tune. And I listened to it about 3 times just on repeat yesterday, just let it go through me. And I was like, yeah, it's another one, innit? Like it's Raf again, like that guy. I'm a massive house gospel choir fan. I've been to, apart from this past Christmas, obviously, because it got cancelled, I've been to house gospel choir Christmas party for like the last 4 years in a row. Yeah, every time. And I've spoken to Raf a couple of times on Instagram, and a couple of the rest of the team as well. And I went, the first time I ever went, I was at a time in my life when things weren't going too great. And my friend Christy, like she said, look, I'm going to go and see these guys. Like, do you want to go out and get a bit of food and we'll go and see them? And then every year after that, we went to every single thing that they did in London. We saw them at Jazz Cafe one time. They done that BTS in the park at Hyde Park. And then we went to their other Christmas party. Then I saw them at Southport. Then I saw them again on Christmas. Like, bro, I've spent untold going to their gigs, and I'm a massive fan.
They're amazing, man. They're absolutely like, they're just a force of nature. How I met Raf, he came on my radio show.
I was going to say, I remember seeing them coming on my show. I saw Cal put up the videos and I was like, I really, really hope that that's a more long-term thing. And then when I saw he was working with you, I was like, yes.
I know, it was wicked. It was like the way it happened as well. Like they came on the show and it was a Christmas special. It was around when they'd done one of them performances, like you said, like the end of the year. And I think like maybe 8 of them came on. So Natalie, big up to Natalie Maddox. She's the boss woman of the House Gospel Choir. She brought them all on, and like there was Raf, Natalie, Liz Nightingale. There was Zaza. Was Zaza there? I think Zaza there. Mons and a couple of other male singers. CJ there as well. But then when they all came in, imagine we're in like the My Soul studio, which is quite big now, but not big. It's like a commercial radio station size. So they came in like 8 of them. So there's like the way they're positioned, like they're in like 2s or they might be in 3s. So like different harmonies, different ranges in different places. And I was in there with the boss, Gordon Mack was in there. And I had like a couple of my little cousins with me and a little girl that used to work with us, like a college junior. She'd do the social medias. So it was quite busy in there, but when they started singing, like you've seen them live, right? So imagine when you go see them live, they move you, don't they? You're just like, they blow you away. They leave something in you that you can't explain. The energy, you can't explain the energy. So imagine now coming into a room and having them in the room with you. And then obviously I'm interviewing like you are now with a mic and headphones, and Raf and all them lot were like literally in touching arm distance of me. So they done all the big songs like Most Precious Love, and something else. And then then they done Gabrielle. So Natalie was like, oh, because it's Christmas time, we're going to do Gabrielle. She's like, Raf, come forward. That was the first time I'd ever seen or heard Raf, like really. And he came up forward and he sung Gabrielle. And that was the night I kind of like fell in love with his voice, fell in love. It was love at first sight. And because the way he sung Gabrielle, and it was something in me, I was getting goosebumps thinking, you know what, I need to work with this guy.
And at this point, I will say, if anyone does want to check it out, there is a full video of it on YouTube as well. If you just search for House Gospel Choir, Size says it's up there. Do you know, it's interesting.
Yeah, if you could link that into your podcast somehow, that'd be dope, because it's
I will.
Thing to watch. Like, it is really amazing to watch. They go in, like, it is, the energy is just, I can't explain it. Like, I work with singers all the time, but when they all come together, it's like a tidal wave of energy, because they're all so amazing on their own. Like one, they're all so amazing. When they come together, and the way Natalie makes them work, like it's just energy levels.
I remember with Raf, one song I heard him sing that just made my hair stand on end. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He sang, they did a gig at a jazz cafe. It was around Easter time, and he sang, it was almost like an a cappella version of Michael Jackson, Rock With You.
Right, yeah, I've heard him.
Oh my God!
He goes to high notes and that.
Oh, bruv, it's you fall in love with a voice like that, and he's someone that he's perfect. He's perfect for a lot of different music, but I think proper soulful house music, that guy is nailed in for him to do massive things now.
Definitely, he's very unique as well. A very, very unique artist. It was like from when I wasn't even on, and when they done that performance in the show, it wasn't like I was like, oh, we need to work together, man, let's swap numbers or anything like that, right? I was just in the moment enjoying that performance, and I felt quite special because it was like almost personal. There was only a few of us in there, like I said before. Anyway, they'd done a few more songs and they went off, and then the track that I'd done, like probably my best-selling track, that was from a couple of years ago now, called With You, with Cleveland Jones, that came out on Defected and Soul Heaven, excuse me. They, like, it was in there that we were going to do a follow-up track, basically. And so Raise You Up, I wrote that, the music and everything, for Cleveland to sing on. But then there was like a bit of a U-turn there where Cleveland was, he just released a jazz album a little while ago and he needed to focus 100% on that. So he was like, look, Si, I can't do it for you at the moment. And I love that when artists are honest, you know, taking it to like footballing terms. It's like, sometimes I compare music to football all the time. It's like, unfortunately, I'm a Tottenham fan. But when Bale wanted to leave Spurs, you get Spurs fans are like, oh, you know, what's he want to go there for? He needs to step. But, you know, when you want to fulfill your dream, like his dream was to play for Real Madrid. It's like what Harry Redknapp said, you can't keep him somewhere, force him to stay somewhere where he doesn't want to be. So when Cleveland came to me, I was quite heartbroken at the time because I felt like I'd been searching for Cleveland all my life as a producer. He's the most amazing singer, and like what he done with You, the song that we created, like, again, like I told you, it's my best-selling track, but the feedback that I still get to this day from that record, the way it's like touched people's lives, it's deep. It's like even weird talking about it. So when he then like kind of said, look, Si, I can't do any more with you for now. I've got to focus everything on this jazz album. And I was like, I'd written this whole track for him. And when I'd done With You, I'd already had the music done. So I didn't know of him before that. He came on after the music, you get me? So now I already knew the magician he was. So I knew what to do when I was writing a new track for him. So, when he went off, I was kind of, but I'm a big believer in when one door shuts in life, other doors open, and you can't ever be negative about anything, because if you're negative and you start turning into a wanker about things, then that door won't open for you, mate. And you've got to be ready to receive it with goodness. So then probably one of the ideas I get when I'm having a shit, because I get some of the best ideas when I'm on the toilet having a shit. Sorry to lower the tone, but
nah, bro, it's a legit thing. It's like when, you know, when you got time to sit and think for 10 minutes, do you know what I mean? It's like
exactly, that's it. I mean, you're squeezing one out for 10 minutes, but I take a lot of notes when I'm in random places, put it that way. And then I remember I just had this epiphany one day, and I had the chords in my head, and I was like, oh, I can't believe Cleveland's not going to do this, and then I was like, oh my God, Raf. That guy from the House Gospel Choir. And then what we did What in the World first, and Cleveland done backing on that track. On What in the World, you got Cleveland on backing vocals, Cleveland Jones, who done With You. You've also got Liz Nightingale from the House Gospel Choir on backing vocals, and Raf himself. So yeah, that was like, we done that, put that out. That was under my Mind State project. That went out on my mate Paris's label. That was before I had my own label. That went out on OPOM, Our People, Our Music. Big up to Paris. And it done well, do you know what I mean? We had a great reception from that record, like from everybody, again, because it weren't about, oh, let's see how high this can go in the Track Source chart or what DJ is going to be playing. This was our message and Raf's message to the world, really, singing about, you know, what in the world is going on, but we've got to stick together. You know, sometimes it's got to rain for the flowers to grow again. If there's no rain, nothing's going to grow. So if you listen to the lyrics, it's quite deep like that. But again, we had some of the biggest people play that, from Louis Vega playing it live on Worldwide FM to all the way through to everyone around the world. So it was, and Raf's the sort of person, again, like with Cleveland, like I'm not messing around anymore and jumping about like I used to, working with all these different energies and different people. When you lock together like that with someone like Raf, I believe anyway, he's a sort of person that you just want to stick and embed in with for a bit and try and make a body of works. Like you said, he hasn't got like a big body of works in soulful house music either. And exactly what you said, you hit the nail on the head. First time I heard him, I thought, right, this geezer can come into the soulful house world and make an impact. Do you know what I mean? Like, imagine when I worked with Cleveland Jones, who'd done With You, he'd never done a soulful house track before. And I was like, blood clot, this guy, when he comes on the track, if I get it right, he's going to mash it down. And like, he is a supreme, like Raf, he is like a supreme vocalist, Cleveland. It's funny because when I pitched the track to like Defected, but I was playing it to other people around me, like that I played music to, whether it was Neil or my mate Orin that I'm close to from Bugs in the Attic, Afron, and they all thought it was a woman at first. They're all like, oh my God, listen to her. She's like, and I'm like, mate, she is a he.
Yeah.
And it's like, 6'4" or 6'2", 3", big unit of a man, but he sings in like, he's not a straight falsetto singer, but he sings high. You know what I mean?
It's a beautiful tone in his voice as well. It's like when I saw I can't remember if it was you that posted it or if it was Raf that posted it. I follow both of you in that, but I looked at it and I was like, Raf, I was like, oh my God, that's Raf and that's Sai. I was like, let me hear this. And then when I heard it, like the music, I was like, yeah, the music's great. Like this is good house music. And then when I actually listened to the lyrics, I was just like, Jesus, like this, it was perfect. I remember where I was. I was on a bus going from Fulham coming home, and I was sitting on a bus and I was just flicking through Spotify trying to find it, and I found it and I was like, wow. Like, and I played it the whole way home. Like the whole bus journey, 25 minute bus journey. I was like, repeat. It just went back and back and back. And I started my, I did a guest mix for Jalen on My House. And it was the first track that I played on the guest mix. Cause it was just like, I couldn't think of a better way to start the set. It's just like, oh yeah, I don't want it to be a blow smoke up people's ass podcast, but yeah, that for me was the track of last year, and I'm so, as I say, I'm so happy you're doing the label, mate, and best of luck with it. But talking, you know, from the present and from the future, going way back in the past, we did touch on it. The back in the day, it was like 2005, I believe, when we first met in the World FM days.
Man.
So World FM, for people who weren't around at them times, was basically a lot of the old Flight FM guys after Flight got shot down after, you know, various incidents and issues that, you know, caused a lot of unwanted attention from authorities. World FM was born, and there were quite a few really, really good DJs on there. And some of the people alongside yourself that influenced me were the likes of Soul Sessions, like Charlie, Roy, and Richie. And I remember me and John used to do the Saturday afternoon. And I'd listen to Charlie and that on like when I got back, and then I'd listen to your show, and it was just purely influential, man. Those days for me were just like, I mean, it's a forming time when you're 17, 18 anyway, but to have you guys around and listen to what you're doing, and then going to some of the events and hearing the music you were playing, I was like, this is me. Like, I'm kind of dropping the more electric side of house and the garage and stuff, and this is me from now on. And I'd always grown up around it because my dad's a DJ anyway. So I'd always grown up around like proper house music throughout the 90s when I was a kid. So it was always in me, but listening to you guys was so influential. With regards to World FM, why were you on there, and where were you before that on radio? Did you do a lot of pirate before then?
Yeah, I've done quite a lot of pirates before that, like, yeah, quite a few. I'm trying to think, was that 2005? Was it?
Yeah, it was around 05. Yeah, I turned 18 in 2005, and I remember being there around then.
Yeah. So yeah, like over the years, I've done like so many different pirates in London. But how I got to World FM was probably because I often done like bits on Flight FM, because I'd grown up with M-Tech. Big up M-Tech, man.
Yep.
I won't say his government name, even though people, most people know it's a common Irish name anyway. It's probably a million of them. But yeah, so M-Tech, big up M-Tech and the full family, little Sonny. I've known him like literally, like I said, some school days. So it was his new concept, and he's kind of like, to give a little breakdown of M-Tech, he's like one of these die-hard pirate radio guys. This guy will never let it die. And for me, the pirate radio thing, no matter what anybody would tell anybody out here, is still maybe not as influential, but still a very important like foundation, pillar, and core.
Well, I've had this conversation a couple of times recently. I was a guest on another podcast, and obviously yesterday, you know, the next episode I'm going to be dropping goes deep into it. And we were just saying yesterday that if it wasn't for pirate radio, this is the level that it goes from, right? If it wasn't for pirate radio, Stormzy doesn't headline Glastonbury. That's the evolution right there.
No, you're right, exactly.
And that, you know, there's so many people, like there's so many even big house DJs that went commercial and had massive tracks. Like, it doesn't come along unless people weren't, you know, on the tops of the shops in Crystal Palace in the 80s setting up LWR, and Gordon wasn't doing his thing. Do you know what I mean?
No, you're right.
And yeah, I'll just, again, it's one of the reasons I wanted to get someone like you on here, because I know that I remember I used to listen to your show on Unknown, like even after World FM and stuff. But I was always interested as to how you got into the World FM scene, because
I was through M-Tech. It was, but like I said, I'd done like So I wasn't, it was weird because I'd like floated around between all different kinds of stations. I'm not going to start naming names, but I had like little bits of like, not beef, but it was weird because I always played house as well, right? So sometimes them stations, there's certain ones I was like kind of around, it was straight garage on these stations. They didn't receive house too well in them days. Like everybody had jumped on the two-step garage thing or even before the two-step thing. So I like flitted around in between places. I used to do the odd guest show, but like I think like Flight FM, because I'd done the odd little thing, because obviously MTech runs it, right? And then obviously you had like TNT and all them people, rest in peace, TNT passed, and they were kind of like affiliated with Dream FM, I think, back way back.
Yeah. Sub-Zero, I remember, was a Dream FM.
Sub-Zero is a good friend of mine as well. Big up Neil, man. Sub-Zero. So again, Sub-Zero, MTech, TNT. I grew up with all them lot from school days, so I was always kind of like in and out. But I never played like drum and bass or garage. I was always like playing house. But yeah, so how I got into World FM was through Flight FM. But I remember when MTech came to me, like I said, he's a diehard radio person, but he was the first person, right, back in them days. Imagine we're talking 04, 05, that was thinking about broadcasting radio digitally through the internet, linking it up to like, well, there wasn't even, Facebook wasn't even in them days, you know?
No, it was in its early infancy. No one really had it.
No one really had it. It was like, if anything, you'd have
it was
like,
MySpace days, bruv. That's when that was.
Yeah, MySpace, or like the clubbing thing. There wasn't even, Resi wasn't even around there. You had like DSI, which is don'tstayin.com. I'm showing my age now, if anyone knows that.
Is it Nothing Sorted as well? I think was just around in them early days.
Yeah, Nothing Sorted, that came after it. But like I say, it was but I'd never sort of understood this concept of like, see, there was a couple of stations that I'd done guest shows on. Like, I think maybe, don't quote me, but I think maybe Push FM or something like that were quite early on in the internet online days back in the day, and a few people I knew from the London circuit used to play on there. But at the time I was doing World FM, it was just after that or around at the same time that I got onto Unknown FM, which was I left Flight FM and I went somewhere else, a station called Mint FM.
Yep.
Where I was at for quite a while, and they used to run a big thing called Peppermint Parties. And there was, again, a lot of people from around my area. And but then I kind of like, when I went off and got my first proper residency, and I got in with the first record label I worked for, which was Fanatics, which was run by Neil Pearce and Aaron Ross. And they was kind of all them big London DJs, them times, they were all like Booker T or people like that as well. The Richie Fingers is all people like this. They was all on like either House FM or Unknown FM. They were quite a serious house stations in as such. So I eventually went from Flight FM, World FM, Mint FM, then on to Unknown FM. That's where I kind of like really, I had a little name already, but being on there, I got a really good show on there as well. I was on there like Sunday afternoon. Sometimes I'd go out and play gigs in London with like Neils and all the Phil Ashers and people like that, and then not even have sleep, just be going on to the radio show. Sometimes have a couple of hours kib, or that was when I was in my party days, man, when I could roll through when I was younger. But,
different now, isn't it?
I always respect MTech because he was the first person that was always on to me about, this is how radio is going to go. And I'd be like, what? Fucking through a browser, listening to it through a browser. But, he wanted to kind of break away from running across rooftops and shit like that and doing that whole like cat and mouse with a DTI. You know what I mean? Taking the rigs, as it is, as you know, with pirate radio station, it's long. Anyone that knows about it, you start getting too old for it. And MTech, but I've got to say, people like MTech, some of these big radio stations in London, I've got to big them all up. They're still out there, the likes of the Cool FMs, Flex FMs, whoever's. Like, people have put blood, sweat, tears. People have died for this shit. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like you said, you take that away, and I remember the government have wanted to take this away from Wade, from when it first started, LWR, Gordon, Crystal Palace days that you obviously know about. They've been trying to take it down from then. They never wanted this to happen. And imagine if they had done, like you say, half of dance culture in especially London, it would have never have been born, mate. Do you know what I mean? It's
a very, there's loads of pirate stations in different cities in the UK, but it is a very London thing. I know they started on the ships in the ocean and stuff, but London was the perfect vessel for pirate. And one of the reasons being is it's kind of bowl shaped. So if you were able to get a decent setup,
up high enough,
on like Crystal Palace or up
Gypsy Hill, that's what it was all up there,
or up like even at Highgate. I know that Unknown were actually coming off of Highgate at one point quite a while. And if you're able to do that with London being as bowl shaped as it is, you're hitting everything, bro.
I'm not going to start naming names, but like at one point in my career, like a little bit before, like the years that you were saying, when I wasn't out there, and obviously it wasn't like I wasn't doing it for a livelihood. It was like early 2000s, late, like I had a flick of the millennium. I was heavily involved in a couple of stations. I said I'm not going to name names, but I was living that life, like up on rooftops, breaking through hatches. Because what we used to do, we used to always have midpoints, and so we're double stacking places. I mean, that's like an old, like I think Cool FM or something, they're probably like the first people with the double stackers. But obviously, again, like, 20, 30 years on, people were emulating what people were trying to do. But there's one particular block, I don't know if I'm going to name it or not, because it might be obvious to who it was, but it's like what you said, exactly what you said. So London is a bowl, right? So if you can get into a perfect point, but where this point was it was actually situated on one of the main A roads that runs through London. So it had like, like where the crow flies or whatever they call it, just a direct thing, a very, very, very high building. And I've been involved in all sorts of pirate radio stations, man. So, but it gives you a good grounding,
Yeah, it does. And it's something I don't think is appreciated enough in the mainstream. Like where does, you're dancing to this house music in a club. Where does it come from? I remember when MK came back, or, he never really went away. He was still working. But I remember when he sort of came back and everyone's like, oh, who is this guy? And I'm like, you danced to Push the Feeling for the last 15 years and you don't know who he is. Like it's the underground homage that I don't think gets spoken about enough, and that's something I'm kind of hoping to do with this pod, and hopefully it opens a few ears and a few eyes and gets a few more people interested. I know
that's how I started. Like for me, pirate radio station is how I started as a kid, not even like a very, very young teenager. I think like the first pirate station that I ever was put onto was like Green Apple, if you've ever heard of that or something like that. And then from there, I used to listen to a station called Touchdown. But this wasn't even playing house. They were playing like hardcore and things like that. And then like from around there, like after like Touchdown, I think that was 94.1. But Green Apple, people that know, they'll know. And then you had like Weekend Rush and all that. But it was more like I'm saying, this was like 1990 sort of, So just at the turn of when house is coming in, late 80s, like so it was still kind of like not happy hardcore, but what we call old school now or whatever, old school hardcore. So it was like that. And then I was like a massive, like, in the early 90s, I was fans of two big stations. One was Girls FM, and that used to play like straight US stuff and house that I'd never heard before. And I only listened to it because Huckleberry Finn used to play on there. And then he was from where Shepherd's Bush, right? So near from where I'm from. And then there was like Don FM was another one that I was a big fan of from young, Don FM. And
Don was legendary, and it's an interesting connection. I don't know if you remember Rage FM and Teen Rage.
I used to go to Teen Rage with
I'm actually going to try and get it's my dad's best mate Sean. It was one of the geezers, that one of the two brothers that ran Teen Rage. So I'm going to try. Hopefully, Sean lives in Minnesota now, so time difference and that allow him.
Listen, mate,
I'll hopefully be able to get those guys.
Mate, sorry to cut you, but tell your dad's mate next time before I forget. It's weird, there's all them stations I'm naming because we were too young to go to rave, so I used to go to Teen Rage. So in them times, we used to travel. We used to have it in like Tolworth Recreation. You know where that is? On the A3 going out towards like past Kingston and all that. And then you'd have like, they used to do it in Epsom. But I used to go there because one of our friends from when we were young is a guy called Stevie A, MC Stevie A. Big up Stevie. And he was literally like probably a year above me at school or maybe two. So when I'm like 13, 14, we're going to Teen Rage, right? And they'd have like at Tolworth Recreation Centre and like you're listening to Don FM, whatever, Touchdown, boom, boom, boom. And then like one of the guests would be Rat Pack. So they'd come on and be doing like Searching for My Rizla and all this, But Stevie, because he was a very young MC he was on Pirate from when he was like 13 or 14, he was like up on stage with like the Rat Pack. So all the big people that we looked up, you know my best mate Tanner, innit? You know Mark Tanner?
Yeah. Me and Mark go back,
Mark Paul, the DJ, So obviously he's my best mate. So when I was like, I've got pictures of us at like 13, 14, like with our leather jackets and all that going and our flipping like Icarus and Air Max. And shit.
Do you know what's crazy about it is when I was on World FM, obviously I knew my dad's mate Sean from when I was a little tiny kid, but I didn't and I knew he was a DJ, and I knew he was the one that kind of brought my dad along, but I didn't realize like just the involvement. I remember going around, I think it was like maybe just before Christmas, and Sean, we went round to his brother's house and we had like a big family dinner and whatnot. And his brother Cole said to me, he's like, oh, so your dad says you're doing a bit of radio and that now. He's like, what's World FM? And I was like, oh yeah, it's this guy and this guy. He's like, oh, Neil, I know Neil. He's like, I've known him since he was like 13. I was like, what are you talking about?
Sub-Zero played early for them.
Yeah, and do you know what he done? He said to me, he said, watch this. And he went in a drawer and he pulled out some old VHS tapes. And it had Team Rage written on it, and it was the old Team Rage videos of Stevie A. And I was like, I'm now working with all of these guys, and they were like,
I'm born and raised and I live in Kingston. Stevie was. I remember I was so young, and I was looking up on stage and thinking, "Rah, there's someone I know up on stage with Brat Pack and Kenny Ken and all these DJs, Cy, Mickey Finn. They used to all come down there. Like, ask your people. Like, trust me, Tolworth Recreation Centre, right, was where it went, and then it started getting so mad there because you'd have all people that wasn't even from Tolworth and that all going there. Then they moved it. They tried to move it out further to a place called, I know because I used to collect flyers as a kid. It was at Epsom in a place called the Rainbow Centre, which used to be which is a leisure centre. Mate, trust me, man. People was in there like bunning weed, doing fucking, like, trust me, I'm not even going to start saying all the madness, but yeah, it was just crazy. But like I said, that was my early. But for me, right, imagine I start going to Team Rage and I'm like 12, 13, right? Listening to, by the time I was 14, Team Rage was like, to me, was a little kiddies thing. I was out like in Astoria and clubs like that. Because when I was 14, right, I looked a lot older. I still had like all stubble and shit. When I was 14, I looked 18. So I was out raving from as soon as I got the green light, dressed a little bit smarter. I used to always be with like older people. So I'd get in the club all the time. And I'd go to like one of the first raves I ever went to was in Astoria, a club called, a thing called the Orange Club. People that are old might remember it. It's like an old school thing. Not Clockwork Orange, the Orange Club, right? And it used to be at Astoria. It was like a kind of, again, like crossover before, they'd have like just before hardcore and all that would come in, you know? I'm trying to think what year it might have been. So probably about 92 or something like that. All crazy. I come from, so just the generation I missed was that M25 orbital illegal raves, like everyone meeting at phone box waiting to go, and you'd hear all your older cousins and people go to that, but you wasn't quite old enough to go to it. But then you started getting the tapes sent back, right? You know what I mean? And then it was like, you know, going to things like the Helter Skelter's Fantasia. So it was like kind of like I came up through like that pirate radio into a little bit of the rave scene. It wasn't until like the mid-90s when I proper started going to house places, you know.
It's mad the way things influence you. Like, I mean, one of the reasons my ears sort of perked up when you mentioned Don was because where I grew up basically on the exact same estates from where Don like originated from, and where Flex came from. Like, not so much Roehampton, but Southfields, like the other side. Yeah. So where there's a certain station that's gone legal now, and they actually broadcast still now from the old Don FM block in Southfields, and like. It's just, I remember going up on one of the blocks once and we were like, bro, we must have been about 12. And we weren't going up there because it was like, we didn't really know what the pirate radio was. We listened to it, but we didn't know it come off the top of a roof. Do you know what I mean? We were like, whatever. But we were climbing up to go on the roof of the building. And I don't know if they had something set up where they knew people were going up there, but I remember a couple of geezers in hoodies coming up and going, get off the roof, get off the roof. We're just little kids like, ah. And then later on, when you look back on it in life, you realize, you know, what the fuck you were doing.
Over there, like if anybody knows it, that part of London, southwest London, where like you're talking about, Roehampton, it's basically just one big council estate full of blocks. So there's like, you've got Danebury, you've got Alton, and it's just big old towers. And again, it's on the A3 again. So it's like up high on the A3, straight across. So yeah, big up all the original Don FM 1057, 105.7, massive, man. Again, it's been like when I was a kid traveling around on a bus with my Walkman on, I used to listen to Don FM religiously. I was into like people like Atmosphere and King Size, but again, it was like hardcore. Big up Nasty V and all them lot, man. People like Revelation. So yeah,
they paved the way for so many different people. I mean, there was even people that came through on them days, people like Ed Rush and people like that went on to do really big things. And you know, like looking back at it again, it's something that there's a few other,
even like one of Chasing Status was come from Don FM.
Yeah, it's one of them things I'm looking forward to getting in touch with a lot more old Pirate Radio heads and sitting down and having a conversation. And the next episode that I'm dropping after this one is DJ BQ, who ran True FM, and I've never ever heard him speak about it. A lot of people don't even know he was that involved, and we had a really candid conversation about it yesterday, and it's fascinating. I mean, they were a bit later; they were like mid 2000s, but it's a piece of history that I'm an anorak for. So I'm just like, I want to chronicle it. Like it's something I'm passionate about. But moving forward, you mentioned a couple of names there, and I remember you gaining a lot of traction when you did start playing, sort of like as not a third member, but almost like the preceding act for Fanatics and all of their events and stuff. And I remember Mark telling me at the time, he was like, bro, he's like, Sai is absolutely smashing it at these events. And like those guys, for me, they actually, one of their records is still probably one of my favorite house records of all time, and that's the track with Don E, Good Thing.
Oh mate, yeah, that was the first record I worked on for the label.
I think it was you that sent it to me, because you said to me like, this is something. Yeah, I think you said this is something that we're doing. Yeah, and even to this day, bro, I'm just like, oh. But what was the experience like working with, you know, Aaron obviously is who he is, but Neil Pearce as well, who I know is just a don for the house scene in the UK. How did that connection come about, and what was it like working with them?
Yeah, brilliant. I learned a lot from both of them people, man. Like so much, probably like most of the things that I know that I got taught, like came from maybe only about a few people, and like them two was one of the two. The other two, sadly, they're not here now, and that was Phil Asher and Paul Trouble Anderson. So yeah, but Neil and that, they taught me a lot, especially to do with like the record label type of thing. But I was only really doing. I started right on the ground up, like with that record that you said, Good Thing. I was just like a runner. So I would just go in between the distributors and shops, just dropping stuff off, collecting a bit of money, going in between. But it's brilliant because you start right down on the road, basically. So you know how it all goes on, back of vans, you know what I mean, going into the shops. And yeah, I kind of learned that from it. But also being in the studio, I learned a lot. That was when I first really started going into the studio and sitting down next to them when they were working on like their album. They worked with some incredible artists, man. So yeah, I was just kind of like in the studio learning, not touching anything, just in the background, you know, absorbing it all. And then obviously working from there, the first residency that we had was at a club called Neighbourhood, which is in Ladbroke Grove on Ackland Road. We called Subterranea back in the day. For any of the older viewers who remember Subterranea, was Subterranea is a legendary club in West London. Like I said, right at the top of Portobello, proper Ladbroke Grove spot. And then I think Ben Watt bought it, and it was Neighbourhood. Ben Watt used to run Buzzing Fly and that. So then Fanatics were doing an event in there, right? So it would be a residency once a month. Neil and Aaron, and then whatever guests would come. And we had like some wicked guests in there. Like anytime a US person was over, they'd come over. But I was there, like, again, just given a chance as a warm-up DJ, really, as a resident. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, they would listen to a couple of my mixes. It was Neil. I always knew Aaron because, again, Aaron comes from that pirate radio scene. Not a lot of people know this, but Aaron used to be called Stamina. So anyone who knows about that Southwest London pirate scene, there was a little spin-off. Some of the Don lot started a station called Scandal FM way back. But you had people like Aaron, Stevie A, like shout out to Stevie A. You had like Nut, shout out to Nut if anyone remembers him. Ruckspin is another Aaron shout out. So a few little fraction of them kind of went off, and I think Aaron was on there. I think Aaron might have even like been on Don a few times. He was Stamina, basically. That was his name. So I knew him from there. But like, we weren't tight like that. It was more the jump on as their resident more came from Neil. So but I'd given him a CD at a time, like a girl that I was seeing had known him and stuff. And she was always telling me, like, oh, you need to push yourself, you know, you're better than like this and that. You need to like be up here with these lot. And I'd be like, what's she talking about? She's like, let me give her a CD. I know Neil and I know this. And I'd be like, oh, well, I know Aaron anyway, you know, from back in the day. But I'm a sort of person, and I still am like it now. I never push myself onto people. Yeah. And like, you know, some people used to say to me sometimes, oh, that will hold you back. You've got to like be running people down and be more, you know, not beggy, but more like put yourself out there more. And I do put myself out there, but not in a way whereas I'm like running people down, begging them for a set, or can I play here? Can I play there? Like, and I'm not saying it, you know me well, I'm not an egotistical person. And I'm not like saying this in any other way, but I don't go out there searching for bookings and asking people for bookings. I'm very blessed, Jay, that, you know, since these early days that you're talking about, and since that residency that really blew me into the world, that when I then became a Soul Heaven resident, started becoming international, because there's a level to that story that you're starting with. There's like levels to that. So I never forget that, you know what I mean? So I'm very lucky that, you know, I still work it a little bit, but I don't go out and push myself on people. And she was the one that was like, listen, Neil needs to hear this CD that you've done, and blah, blah. And he heard it and he said to me, look, we've got a residency coming up. Like the CD's dope, he really liked it. It's funny, I'll never forget. He actually, one comment that stays with me, he said that basically I played everything, the CD was wicked, and I showed, you know, like progression in the mix and all stuff like that. But I was playing my music too fast. And it was like 126 or 127 BPM, but I was much younger then, you know what I mean? Like when you're younger, you jack your music up a bit. He's like, no, you need to like, you know, so even just a little thing like that taught me a lot of things, like just to slow your music back down to what it was actually made of. Don't need to jack it right up sometimes for energy. But yeah, getting that residency there at Neighbourhood. But the thing is, when I went in to do my first gig with them, I warmed up for like the Fanatics and whoever the guest was. I think it was Halo, who was a producer from California. I think Frank Roger might have even done it with him, actually. This is before Frank was like a big name. And I remember like I put in a guest list, well, not a guest list, call it a guest list, but it's not, it's like your concession list of like 120 people, and maybe like 80 of them got ticked off. So if you're a younger DJ and you're a good DJ, you can play music, so you've shown yourself that as like, you know, you've shown the people that, but then you're bringing 80 people through the door as well. You're like a wet dream to a promoter, as you know. You know, it's like London. Unfortunately, it's like that. You know, it shouldn't be, but it is. You can't just think, oh, you're going to get booked because you're a great DJ that plays great music anymore. Some people will book you for that, but there's a lot of promoters, name no names, a lot of clubs, they're booking young DJs on the back of how many tickets can you sell, not how good you are or what music you play or can you rock a crowd. It's like, oh, what, you can bring 20 of your mates for extortionate £30 door price, yeah, you come in. But they've
got a stage in London where probably it was probably UK wide, to be fair, but they got a stage that promoters stopped being promoters. They just started being organizers, and then they were relying on DJs to do all of the work for them.
Doing their job.
Which, you know, I mean, I get it. If that's the hustle, that's the hustle, right? But it's something that always really disheartened me and stopped me from really pursuing it as a career, because I just hated that atmosphere of like, as you say, sort of like having to sort of put yourself on people and need to sell this ticket and that. And I wasn't really feeling it. But I do remember, I think I went to one of the Neighbourhood parties after Mark told me about it, but I think it was a little bit later on, and I'm not sure you were actually there. I can't remember, but it's a long time ago, and I've done way too many South American supplements since then to remember anything like that.
We moved anyway. We moved to a club called Herbal. It got quite big at Neighbourhood, and we ended up moving to Herbal
in Shoreditch,
which was quite a legendary club in Shoreditch, just on the Kingsland Road. And again, like, we done parties there for years, man. As Fanatics, like, we had everybody there from like so many different names: Osalade, Spen, Soul to Soul, DJ Deep, like Victor Duplay. I could just go on all day. We had so many. And then we partnered with BBE. So BBE used to do the top floor, BBE Records, and Fanatics we'd do downstairs. So BBE, like, some days you'd have like Spinner upstairs of Victor Duplay, and we'd be downstairs of like me, Neil, Paul Trouble Anderson, God rest him, and Osalade. That's, you know, we used to have it rammed. Those was like the golden days. It's like, that was when the Soulful House scene was like thriving. And obviously we were Soul Heaven residents as well. So Soul Heaven was like the main Soulful House night at Ministry of Sound, when you had like Masters of Work coming over, all the big acts. So,
I think Soul Heaven was just consistently an incredible brand, like not just a label, not just an event, but just the full package. Like even down to the merchandise. Like, I wish I still had a couple of my old Soul Heaven t-shirts. You know, them ones. Like,
I know. I wish... Same, man. I ain't really forgot any, man. I know those t-shirts used to be dope.
Yeah, and you know, them times were incredible.
What colour did you have?
I just had the black one with like a sort of yellowy gold kind of thing on it.
Yeah, yellowy gold. Yeah, that's the one. Isn't it?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I remember them days well.
But getting onto Soul Heaven for me was a big step up in my career, because from working with Neil and like the Fanatics, just being a warm up, that's where I really went into the world. Then I kind of like went off and played for people like Bobby and Steve, got my first gig with Paul Trouble Anderson. That was quite a big moment for me.
Was that around the same sort of time that you started? Because I remember I hadn't seen or heard from you for a little bit, and obviously we're not like best mates, we don't talk all the time, but it's like every now and again I'll see you on the socials and that, and we'll like maybe message back and forth. And I remember there was a time I didn't catch you for a little bit, and the next thing I saw, I think it was, what was the brand called? You were playing out abroad somewhere, and I think it might have been Stereo Sushi or something like that.
Right, yeah.
And I was like, I was like, what the fuck is like, what's going on here? Like, you just seem to go from simmering to just like, boom. Was that around the time that the international booking started coming a little bit more often?
Yeah, well, it was mad because I was Soul Heaven resident in ministry, and then, it just started, like, again, that platform just puts you onto, like, when I went in there, like, the lineup was quite big. It was like Andy Ward, Phil Asher, like Aaron Ross, Rude Boy Rupert, people like that as the residents. So I came around at quite a good resident people. And then, from what Stereo Sushi was like Head Candy's sister label. Yeah. So Head Candy had gone off fully commercial. And Stereo Sushi was like their sister label that was a bit more deeper and soulful. So I kind of bagged a bit of a residency at the same time then, because I used to play for a party that was called Kinky Malinky, that was quite big as well, and I'd travel around with them a little bit. So yeah, it was just good timing for me. And like I said, our music's taken a bit of a knock because it hasn't always been that popular, you know what I mean?
Do you know what's, it's interesting you say that, and I sat there on Friday when I knew your track was coming out. As I say, I jumped on Tracksource and grabbed it, and I sat and went through. I do it every couple of weeks where I'll go through Tracksource and just see what, even though I don't play anymore, I'll still collect music. Do you know what I mean? Because I do the occasional live stream from home, and I like to play up to date if I do it. So I was going through and I noticed in the top 100 over the last couple of years, it's just mainly just been house or, maybe tech house. I noticed the top 100 on Tracksource this last week, bruv, there is a bare soulful house. Like, it is inundated with soulful house at the minute. It's like, it feels, and some of the records that I've been grabbing, and it kind of feels like that again. Like, I don't know whether it's just because I'm paying a bit more attention, which it possibly is, but I don't know, there's something brewing there where I'm listening to some of this music and I'm like, yeah, this is at the level where it should be, and those days though, I mean, those days with the music, like from, as you say, like 2004 up to like, the next 4 or 5 years, some of the records that were coming out, bro, oh my word. Some of the music, like some of the music from like, Mother Funkers, Mark Evans, all that kind of crew, and
Quentin Harris.
Bro, you couldn't turn around without like hearing another Quentin Harris remix or record, and Dennis Ferrer was untouchable at that time.
Yeah.
And then obviously loads of the old school artists like your Masters at Work and stuff were still bringing out great records as well. So it was a great time. It was a great time. I remember being I remember being on my Fat Beat show, and I was never short of a record to play. Do you know what I mean? Like there was never something new that week, Yeah, incredible times, man. Incredible.
I think they also, from that era that you're talking about, it's like when little eras come around, like that, little pocket eras or whatever, it's like you can pick that record out now, right, and listen to it now, whether it's vinyl, whether go and play it in a club or whatever, and it's kind of stood the test of time. Those sort of records around that era with tracks that timeless in a way, not always classics, but like, look, for example, like Dennis Ferrer album you just mentioned there, you could probably pick any record off that Dennis Ferrer album and it was still holding its own out there. And whether that's something like, well, not the obvious one, let's say something like Church Lady or something like
For me, do you know the best track on that album was probably Run Free?
Yeah, with Katie Brooks.
Yeah, that was, oh my God, that album was like life-changing for me, man.
Did he pass away?
He did. And do you know what's interesting? I don't know how much of this is true, and maybe someone who's listening could speak on it. Run Free, I remember when he did pass away, I remember I was quite bummed because obviously he was like a great talent and his music meant a lot to me. I remember reading somewhere, possibly in an interview or a blog somewhere, that Run Free was written by Dennis about KT Brooks, and he didn't tell him it was about him. And he just gave it over, and and just said, like, here's the lyrics. That was the story that I heard, and I hope it is true because it gives me goosebumps. I hope it's true because it gives me goosebumps thinking about it. So that album was fantastic and influential. So obviously by this point you're Soul Heaven resident and stuff. When did the transition to coming in, like working for them full time, happen?
So what, as you mean, like on the label side of stuff?
On the actual label, yeah.
Yeah, that was like probably about 6 years ago now, maybe a little bit longer, when we merged with Defected again. Because they were back in that golden day that you said, Aaron. So Aaron Wass was the head of A&R then for Soul Heaven, when we used to release all the compilations and all things like Stuck, Heaven Everett, like I Can't Do Without, all that early Heaven Everett stuff. Trying to think what other stuff was on there. There was the whole dope stuff. The catalog's just ridiculous. So yeah, Aaron was like the guy there signing all the stuff. Then they left Defected and Soul Heaven had like a bit of a split for like maybe 4 or 5 years, and then they came back. And then in that time, then Neil went in then Aaron went over and worked as Defected. It was like Simon Dunmore, one of the main influential A&Rs alongside Defected, right, for years. And then Neil was running Soul Heaven, so that over next wave of Soul Heaven releases, the A&R, he was signing a lot of stuff. And then I kind of like when Neil moved on, and then when they done another joint venture again with Defected, then I went in as the A&R manager for this wave that we're in at the moment, which has been about 5 or 6 years now. So that's when I first went into like the label side of it. But apart from that, I've always been like a resident for Soul Heaven, and I've been, again, lucky that I've been there for so many years. From when I started off as one of the younger ones at Ministry, I kind of worked my way up, and then we've got an international roster. So every year we play at like Ocean Beach is the residency for us in Ibiza, has been for 7 years. We've got residencies in Croatia at festivals at ADE, which is Amsterdam dance thing. So again, I'm blessed that I can go around to different places and represent. And it's an honor for me because before I got playing for Soul Heaven back in the day, I used to rave at Soul Heaven as a raver. Go there and watch. Go there to watch Masters at Work, to watch Frankie Knuckles. And then like fast forward a few, years later, I'm on the flyer with these people and stuff like that. So it's just like, I did just to believe this. I'd go to Ministry sometimes, and like you say, we was all under the influence of different substances or whatever back in whatever days. But sometimes I'd stand there and say to friends of mine, like, I'll be up there one day, and I'd point at like the box or the booth in Ministry, and people might just think you might be again under the influence, or you might just be getting a bit.
It means
you've got to believe it to achieve it. I mean, you've got to see it. Yeah. If you can't see something as a possibility, then you're less likely to do it, aren't you? That's the way I think.
It means a lot when you achieve things like that. I remember something that was a really big deal for me was I've warmed up twice now for Grant Nelson, who's a musical idol for me. And I also got to play at an objectivity night, which obviously Dennis's night at Egg. I was in the other room. I think it was just him and Andre Homan in the main room. But like little things like that, being able to even be on them brands. Like when I was a kid, when I was like 18 on World FM, not really knowing what I was doing, to then being able to go and competently play on the same event as these people, for me was like, raw. Like, so I get exactly what you're saying, and what you're saying is it's on an even bigger scale. So it's like, I've got goosebumps for you, mate.
Thank you.
Was there ever a time whilst you were working with Soul Heaven that you actually had to stop and sort of look back at everything that you had done and just take it in? Because for me, that'd be a big thing. Like, I'd have to sit there and just go, like, I'm actually doing this, them ones.
Yeah, sometimes like I do. I'm quite a reflective person, but like I'll be traveling a lot with them. Sometimes I'll be in different places, and I always like to visit the sea wherever I am. I'm quite spiritual like that. I like to connect to the sea, and I manifest and put out a lot of stuff when I'm around the water. So I'll be there, and sometimes I just go and sit on a rock and just put my feet in the water and just be present and just think, like you said, just realise. But it is sometimes hard to put it into perspective. But I don't like to sit there and dwell on it too much, especially like when I've noticed myself in booths, all of a sudden you realise, shit, I'm about to like come and play after like Kenny Dope or something like that I've done quite a lot, or Terry or whoever, even Paul Trouble Anderson, like people like that, when you start realising shit, especially Paul, because when I was coming up in London, he was the man. He was like the DJ that everyone looked up to. So when you start getting amongst them, but if you sit and dwell on that too much, you're going to feel like, I don't know, for me personally, you just got to get on and do it. You know, you got to realise that, you know what, you're good enough to be here amongst them. So you're not here for no other reason than that. But I did used to reflect sometimes a lot, like I said, when I'd be there on a beach or I'd be on some random rock in like wherever by the sea, and I'd think to myself, rah, you know, that, and I don't, you know, I don't believe in luck, so I'm very grateful for the blessings and for the journey. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's something I've always noticed with you, and as I say, you do tend to pay it forward. I've known over the years, it's one of the reasons I really I was quite eager to put you with Jalen, because I know you can take him under your wing and show him things properly. I know you've done it with other people as well. I know you've got a great relationship with the likes of Ellie Cox, who's like a quality young DJ as well, and she's been coming up for quite a long time.
Yeah, big up Ellie, man.
Yeah, so you know, I get entirely what you're saying, mate, and I know it's all genuine and legit. You mentioned a guy there whose name you've mentioned a couple of times, and I know we barely spoke before we did this podcast, and I just said, look, you know, I'd like to, if possible, sit there and ask you about your relationship with a couple of greats who have sadly left us, and one that was recent that we'll get onto, but Paul Trouble Anderson, who passed away. I think it's been a couple of years now. As you say, an absolute linchpin of the London house scene. And you know, we were talking about them Crystal Palace Pirate Radio days, and I know there's plenty of stories of Paul being a guy sitting on the roof making sure nothing happened. But what was
baseball bat?
What was your first sort of encounters with Paul, and how did that relationship grow with you guys? Because I know that again, you know, we talk about being, you know, almost idolizing these people and then, you know, becoming a peer and working alongside them. What was that like for you with your relationship with Paul?
Yeah, man, it was like just epic, really. It's just crazy. It's hard to really document it, but like firstly, Paul's was very important, became very important to me. Like starting off at the end, like before he passed, he's a very important person to me, not just as like a musical mentor, inspiration, or a guide or whatever, but almost like Phil was as well, came out of music and almost like a life mentor, almost like a, you know, if it wasn't for people like Paul, I probably wouldn't have become a dad. I think that's how deep it was for me. Do you know what I mean? He came out of music for us, and towards the end of his life, when he was battling with cancer, like I've never seen anybody battle. I've done a lot of gigs with him. I travelled a lot of the UK with him, in IB for quite a bit, into Croatia. So I spent a lot of time with him. But starting at the beginning with Paul, again, he was someone that you looked up to. I remember the first time I ever saw him in a club playing was when I hadn't ever heard like vocal house or like garage, what they called it then, because I'd come from that rave scene, like I was saying before. A lot of the clubs I was going in, and I won't say the reasons why we're in there, but it wasn't for musical reasons. So it was a lot of the harder boom, 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 bangy clubs, right? So the main room was always like tough house, almost what they would call hard house now, or whatever. Yeah, house wasn't broken up in these days. So anyway, without naming names or places, so no, I'll name names. This one used to be the Coliseum, in Coliseum, right? Way before Garage was in Coliseum. They used to have a club in there called the Satellite Club. The main room was all banging hard house, like people like Craig Demet, Graham Gold, Dave Lambert, all these sort of people, if anyone knows. But then in this little side room, which we didn't really frequent because me and my friends, we were there for other reasons in the main room. But every now and again, I'd dip into this little side room, and this little side room only held like 200 people. The crowd was a lot more cultural. There was a lot more black people. The crowd was a lot more mixed, yeah, and the music was a lot more groovy, soulful. I'd never heard house like it. It was almost like disco and Motown on a house beat. And the dancing was completely different. And I remember going in there and I'd never heard music like it. I was like, what the fuck? It was so different to this higher tempo. Like, you'd get the odd vocal licking off in the main room, but it was like, if anyone knows, like that club was like, before like a club called Peach like took off, which was like Friday night at Camden Palace. Peach is like quite hard. Everyone's having it large. It's not like anywhere like what I was into. So, but like going back to the Satellite Club, I've never heard a room like that. Never heard music like that. I'm in this room. then I see the DJ and I'm like, who the fuck's this DJ? Never seen a DJ like him again. This guy's like, looked like Apollo Creed from Rocky, like his arms, everything like was ripped like a specimen of a man. And he had like a waistcoat on, like flashing, and it was Trouble, and like bandana on. And then obviously like his physique and just his aura. First of all, the music hits you, then you see, like, because I was a kid, when I was younger, I used to love to go to the DJ booth and hang over it like that and look at them. You know what I mean? Look what they're doing. I spent hours as that youngster, just like, half of the time I might have been spangled, but I was genuinely watching them, just studying like what they're doing with them, because mixers in them days, they're like dinosaur mixers, man. Yeah. So I'd love to watch a man how they're, and it was vinyl as well. There was no CDJs and that, so I just love to study him. So I remember I was waking my way towards the DJ booth, and you see him, and you're like, who the fuck's this guy? And then the music hits you first, then his aura, then the dance moves, because I hadn't ever seen a DJ dancing like this, like Trouble. He's like spinning around at a million bars an hour doing mad dances. And I remember someone was like, yeah, that's Paul Trouble Anderson. And obviously you know the name, like you think you know the name, but you know, because I've collected flyers as a kid. But that was the first time I'd ever seen him. And in that room, it was, like I said, it was a side room to Satellite Club, which was in the Coliseum. And that room was like the residence of Bobby and Steve. So you'd have like Paul Trouble Anderson playing in there, and even Seamus Hadji, who's like quite a big name.
Yeah.
Playing that kind of music then, Seamus. And I'm trying to think who else. I can't think who else, maybe Chrissy T, but I remember then every week when I'd go back to this club, eventually me and the people I'd go to this club and forget not naming names of what we was doing, we got banned from this club. So I could never go back to it. And I used to get sometimes told off for going in this side room, because in this room, again, without saying the reasons, it wasn't about anything but music.
Yep.
Not about drugs or drink, or it was straight. And that's something that, it was weird. I remember I walked in there, I'd never seen anything like it. And I've been to like raves and parties, and I was probably like 17 at this time, right? So from then, obviously, then you, like, because I was collecting records then, I was a little DJ doing all my little house parties and parties. So then that's when I changed as a DJ, because I was going into record shops and asking for them tunes, like that 10 City record that Trouble's playing, or Bobby D. Amoroso, like Moment of My Life. Dun, 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 dun. That was like a big Trouble track. I remember it was one of the tracks I first heard him play in there, and I'd never heard anything like it in there. So then from there, I started going to places like, trying to go to like Garage City and around these other places. So Paul, that's the first time I saw Paul. And then obviously it wasn't until probably like maybe 10 years after that, fast forward 10 years, that I played my first gig with him. Because basically Paul was the person that gave Neil Pearce his break. So Neil, like in the Loft days when Trouble ran a legendary like Loft, Jeremy Newell was his resident. Then he gave Neil a big break. Neil used to work at like record shop, Release the Groove and stuff like that, kind of put him in the game when he was younger. But what really put him in the game was Trouble, you know, because if Paul's bringing you on as his resident in them days, that's like the biggest like watermark stamp certification that you can have. Do you know what I mean? From the big man. So he brought Neil on. So, you know, years later, I remember the first gig I ever did with Trouble. I said to me, Neil said, oh, I'm going to try and get you. Trouble's doing a big party in London, and was asking me about warm-up DJs to play. And the thing is, like, this is another thing I say to the youngsters who are like watching and listening or out there. It might be different in like different types of house or other genres, but sometimes like knowing how to warm up or how to play early sets is something that can be so important for you, learning how to DJ and really finding yourself as a DJ, because it's the time. But where I come from, it's not about just having one gig, going on and playing all the bangers and just going bam, bam, bam. And you know what, as a youngster, and this is how I got, it's weird because I still tell people, I feel like I got more of a reputation as a warm-up DJ than I did as someone who can go and play a main set and still bad up a club. I got more shine from people like Paul, even some of the Americans that would give me compliments when I play with them, because they respect, and I look at younger people now, even like with Jalen's like it, he knows how to warm up. If he's playing before you, he knows what to do. He ain't going bang, 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 bang and playing all the big tracks that everyone was, he leaves room. He waits till he comes on later to take it up. So for me, it's something that really looks good for you, being able to show that you know how to set the tone in a club.
It's an important part of the craft, mate. It's an really important part,
mate. And people don't learn that now. It's just like, you know, when I've done that, for example, when I got in there to do that, got in there and again, I'm not going to name names, but like these people that there's a rotary mixer, and Trouble doesn't use rotaries. He likes to use crossfaders. So they had a rotary, a big Uri, triple track Uri, and then like the Pioneer, I think it was Allen and Heath in there that had the crossfader. So I was like, oh, I'm going to jump on the rotary. And they're like, because I was a little bit younger, they said, no, this rotary belongs to so-and-so. I'm not going to know names. This person's touched it. This person's had his hands on the knob. What, do you know how to use it, do you? And I'm like, yeah, I've used them before. Don't worry. Are you sure? Well, Trouble's using Allen and Heath. Why don't you just crack on and that? And I'm like, to be honest, I hate Allen and Heath mixers. I think they're terrible. Allen and Grief, I call them. So I was like, no, I want to use the rotary. So anyway, in the end, he lets me use the rotary. Trouble ended up coming over and saying, listen, if he wants to use it, let him use it. They're like, all right, okay, go on and you can use it, but don't fucking break it. Tony Humphries has touched this. Fucking Frankie Max's naming all these names of people that have touched this mix. And anyone that knows, the Uri is like probably the granddaddy of the rotary mixers, yeah, where meaning that it's knobs rather than faders and sliders, right? So anyway, I'll go on and start playing. And then I put the first record on, I look up and the whole place is just packed of people because they're all there because it's Trouble's. I think it might have even been his birthday or something. I can't remember what it was. And who else was playing? I think DJ Disciple might have been playing, actually. I think it was. So it was a big thing. So people come from early. And when in Trouble's party, you got like proper soulful house, jazz, dancers there. So it's like, coming in, what you got? And I remember I was playing and he wanted me to warm up for 2 hours. So I got there at like 9:30, starting at 10 to 12. So I'm like, nah, get in there. And it's just wicked. It was one that I still remember the set. It was an amazing set. And about 12 o'clock, like the club's like, and I hadn't gone like where I really wanted to because obviously I'm still warming up. So I was just taking it up there. And then he kept saying, play on, just keep playing. So I was playing for maybe like 2.5, 3 hours before before he came on. And that's another thing I always rate, is like people like them. It was nothing to do with ego with people like Trouble. Even though people might say that, oh, well, look at him though, he was so flamboyant, the ultimate showman. The guy wore a belt with his name flashing on it. How can you say? But it wasn't nothing to do with ego with him. Do you know what I mean? It was purely to do with music, mate, and the energy between playing music and the people and dancing. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, it was like, that was my first ever gig I did with him. I've got a picture of us together, actually. I'll dig it out. I'll show it to you.
I think one of my favourite pictures is the one of you two with a birthday cake.
Yeah. Because for years after that, so then from that point then, when I actually had my first gig with him, again, I'm so blessed. Even talking about it is quite overwhelming because, like I said, leading up, like when he passed, that year, the 2-3 summers before, I was going to a lot of places with him, to Ibiza. Like I said, we're traveling to Croatia, Italy, these places, and this was at a time when this man was seriously ill. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was dying of cancer. He was like, and the only thing that was really keeping him alive was still this passion for music. And it's weird, like, anyone watching this now that's experienced it, I have as well, with a family member, when you see a male family member, whether it's your dad or granddad or big brother, that's been this strong, iron, unbreakable person, and this fucking cancer illness gets hold of them, and you see as someone deteriorate down to not being that strong. Do you know what I mean? It's fucked up to see that shit. Do you know what I mean? But nothing stopped him. He still carried on playing. And sometimes I'd say to him, and I didn't know how to say things to him because obviously he's like a dad to me. So I'd be like, oh, Paul, man, maybe we should take it easy, get an early night. I'd be like, listen, I'm not stopping to do the things that I love in life. Like, if I stop doing what I love, going for a walk on the beach with you late at night, then I'm letting it beat me. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, wow, this guy is like, I know I'm sort of diverting off the story, but
no, it's true. And I think it's one of them things where it's sort of like, if you know your situation is that bad, you don't, I think that it's hard to put yourself in that mindset without ever having experienced it. And I can relate to what you were saying, because last year my dad was ill and he was on a ventilator and stuff, and I can relate to that aspect of it. But I think with someone in his position, you don't ever want to quit doing that stuff, especially if you know you're coming towards the end of your life, because what's the point otherwise? Why am I bothering trying to fight this thing? I might as well just quit and roll over. So yeah. So that attitude there, I mean, it speaks to a strong person, but I think it's 100%, correct. I think that's the only way to live life.
Yeah, I mean, he was like, from that point where I played in Herbal for him, the first times I went off and just done so many different gigs with him. And again, because I was like part of My Style Radio as well, I still am. He was like a big integral part of that. So when we did different events with like My Soul and stuff, he would sorry, this light's doing my nutting, man. I'm trying to. Sorry, I know that's not. So yeah, he I would go, like I said, a lot of places with him. Soul Heaven used to book him a lot, so I'd go all over with him to places. But one of the ones that stands out is what you said. It was actually my 30th birthday, because we shared our birthdays are 2 days apart. So often, like, we went down to do this big, like one of the biggest promotions in Bournemouth, which used to be, well, it's called God Made Me Funky. They're not doing it anymore, but it used to be called that. And we went down, it was their birthday, like their 10-year anniversary. So it was my 30th. I think, I can't remember, I don't think it was Trouble's 50th, but it was, can't remember anyway. But they made a cake, like what you said. But on that day, we went out first on like a double-decker, this massive double-decker boat all around Poole Harbour, played, right? And me and Trouble were the guests. And then we went to this like big, like old hotel where they did this other event. And the way I saw, that was the first time I'd gone on the road with Trouble properly and seen the way all these people, like from out of London, because you know, like in London, when you come from London, you get a bit like narrow-minded sometimes, you know what I mean? And then we all know how much he loved him. But when I come out and I saw how much they loved him, and that, you know, it was mad, like to see, like he had proper celebrity, like superstar DJ status, like wherever he went, and people would come up and yeah, they made us a special cake. That kind of blew me away. And I mean, they kind of made it for me because it was my birthday as well, but it's really for him. And it was 2 Technics and a mixer made out of. And I know it was proper funny. I think one of the promoters, they must have like put flipping a load of hash in the mixer, innit? The mixer, it was like a little made to fade mixer, the hash cake. And I remember someone that never smoked weed or anything in their life basically ate this cake and was in a bad way, man, like in the corner fucking, yeah. So, yeah, never eat a cake that's shaped as a Dex and a mixer, man, without asking first. But yeah, from then I would go around all places with him, and yeah, it's very influential. It's really hard to just speak about Paul. Basically, put it this way, Paul was like this person that was, if it wasn't for Paul, I wouldn't even be sitting here talking to you, basically. It's like, no, like how you're saying how influential pirate radio was on like people like far forward like 30 years, and look at Stormzy and people like that, look at like the forefront of dance, even pop culture, you can say it affected it that much. Paul was like that for us, for house music, and for the Americans, and they'll all tell you that. Like at Paul's funeral, they were all giving testimonies, like whether it's Byron Stingley, come on, get up everybody. Like that record would never have gone into the charts if it wasn't for Paul back in them days. All the big master work records, like he literally, all them early big records, he broke them. They weren't getting broken in America because America didn't give a shit about how, I did care about house music in Studio 54, Paradise Garage, or in a shelter in tiny little pockets. But the main thing in house music in America was hip hop or country music or whatever shit they listened to in that place. Yeah. So basically that was the biggest thing. They don't, you know, in order for these big people now who are multi-millionaires, yeah, like the people I'm just naming, their music had to break in London first, you know what I mean, in Europe first. It's like, you know, they're not getting paid the same DJ gigs in New York or America than they would when they come to London. So, and it was Paul was the person that opened all that. And this is why, I mean, I say it on the podcast and stuff, and it's like, I watched every single history of house documentary that has ever been made before the internet came about, before fucking YouTube, any of that. And since YouTube's been gone, and I watch it because I study what we do. I'm a pupil of this thing. Do you know what I mean? Still, I'm still learning. And when I watch that, it disgusts me, like that not one of these programs ever talk about this man and what his influence. And I'm not going to name names, but I don't need to, because anyone that's seen it, there's the same story. It's like, I'm not going to go religious with it, but it's the same story that they basically give all the time. This one went to Ibiza, bought house music back to London. It's like...
It's always the same 4 or 5 names that get mentioned.
Same narrative. All right, that is true, bits of what they did, but they never...
Bits of it, but I'll also say something that you probably won't think is controversial, but some people might. They're all white faces as well. That for me, that's always something that I've noticed, where it's like there's a little bit of washing of history there. Do you know what I mean? And it's something.
Well, there is I know there isn't mostly white faces. I mean, there is like bar 1 or 2, but again, the story just like it just gets confused along the way. It's like most history, again, without going like too controversial, or religious, or political, or historical. It's like, it's the history, even the history they teach our children in school is a load of bollocks. So wouldn't be surprised that the history of house music gets construed, like gets confused in the way it does along the way. But
a lot of people don't even understand the origins of it, so they don't even realize about where it actually. I mean, you mentioned the clubs in America where it first gained popularity. They don't understand the scene of where it came from, and it was a predominantly gay scene run by minorities. Like, it was their parties. Do you know what I mean? That's where the vibe came from and came out of disco and everything else. So I think it's again I go back to it. It's something that I enjoy talking about, and I hope gets more of an educational message across. The more I do these podcasts, is to look at the roots of this thing and just be like, where did this thing that we all love so much actually come from? Even the people, as you say, there's ramifications on the pop music scene. A lot of pop music is commercial dance music, really. And where did that all come from? Like, again, if it wasn't for people like Paul and what he did, in the Kiss FM days, early days and whatever, and breaking a lot of these records, then, I wonder what it would be like. Would we be like America with, as you say, they've got country music one side, hip hop the other, and fuck all in between? Like, would we be similar? I don't know, but it's an interesting conversation to have. But mate, I'm really happy that you're actually able to sit here and share the stories like that, man. I appreciate you doing it, because
no worries, man.
And also, to touch on, something that gutted me when I heard it was the recent passing of the Flash. Phil Asher. I mean, for me, Restless Soul, I know the biggest track, probably, I don't know if it was the biggest, but one of the ones that got known by more people outside of house music was probably Tricks. And that for me is still like, I still play that now, like if I'm playing a house set, like
Soul,
oh bruv, what a record. But your relation, I've seen you post a lot recently about Phil and just some of your experiences. The one in Italy I found like really cool, just to read what you wrote there. What was your relationship like with him, and how did you get to know him coming up?
Again, like, similar to Paul, man, like it's difficult talking about it in a way, because they're two, like, apart from Neil, they're like the two really, really important people. Phil more, like Paul, kind of like, just as how we explained, and he was like the DJ, he set the path for us all. And Paul was also like, very fierce when it comes to like us getting mugged off by promoters and all these, the way that whole side of it is. But Phil was more like someone who became, again, very, very close to me. Like, I spoke to quite a lot, like a big brother to me, basically. But he taught me a lot about to do with production, because he was, when I first met Aaron and Neil, that's how I met Phil. But I'd known of Phil for years because I'm buying his records, like you say, Restless Soul, Phil Asher, Black and Spanish. He was Black and Spanish with Orin, Bugs in the Attic, making all them sort of like garagey tracks back in the day. So we obviously Phil Asher, but didn't know him personally. And then when I started working with Neil and Aaron was not only part of Fanatics, he was like quite an integral member of Restless Soul. So Restless Soul is like a whole clique of them, yeah. So you got like Jose Carretas, you got like Luke, Carty, HHA, all them boys in there, right? So and it feels like the leader of Restless Soul. But Phil, so how I got to meet him again was like through Aaron, because I'll be sitting in studios a lot of the time, and I was really fascinated about becoming a drum programmer and learning the MPC. And these guys were all working on MPCs. Anyone that knows what that is? It's a drum machine made by Akai, made famous by people like Dr. Dre, J Dilla. So they had them. So I was like trying to learn that, And Phil's one of these people, like, if he saw you and he took a shine to you and he could see that you were in it for the real reason and you wanted to learn, and he would just help you. And that's again where I get that. The reason why I'm very passionate about helping up and comings and supporting people is I do get it. First of all, I get it from my own dad, how I've been brought up in life. But then to come into the music industry and be under like the wing of people like Neil, Paul and Phil, who are very much helpers and empowerers and helping people. Do you know what I mean? So Phil, I just like literally I spent a lot of time with Phil going back and forth from his studio. It's helped me a lot learning how to use the MPC. And just someone that like proper gave me my first samples. He was the sort of person would load you up with samples and then say, right, off you go. And then like just help, just someone that was constantly there helping you all the time, and trying to, like he saw like something in me that I didn't even see in myself. He's one of those people. Like, and he pushed me into like becoming a producer, doing this, doing that, when maybe sometimes I didn't even think I could do what I did, you know. And he signed a couple of tracks from me when I was like Aphrodisiacs with Gavin. So yeah, we became like, you know, very close. I wouldn't know a lot of people in the industry if it wasn't for Phil. Phil was like the original like gate opener and link man to a lot of people. Like that whole broken beat scene that grew out of West London, the whole Bugs in the Attic thing, and that was all orchestrated by Phil, all brought together by him. So
that is sick.
From our scene is like, now we're going to come back out of the worst time in humanity that we know. Not maybe the worst time in humanity, but for our lifetimes and even our parents, and maybe even, well, some of them lived through the war, so you could probably say the war's fucking worse than that. But
I think it is the worst time post-war, like that we've had to deal with, definitely.
But like coming out of the back of that, like, you know, you're seeing everyone's getting gassed now because like, and it's amazing, like, you know, we're getting festival announcements coming, bookings are coming back in. So the scenes, everything's going to start to come back. What I'm like, been thinking about a lot is like in our scene where we come from, especially in London and everything that you're touching on, two of the main pillars of foundation, like the two RSJs or whatever you want to call them, are in ripped out in Paul and now in Phil. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's now a time for, you know, a lot of people to be, me included, for us to really step up. Because now is the thing that, another thing that's frustrating, like when one of your friends like Phil and Paul dies, is obviously the likes of you, me and everyone, that we all know the legendary status they got, but sometimes on the broader, like looking at it, like looking at the bigger picture, like going out to like the commercial side of things, whether it's magazines, news programs, I was saying documentaries, they've never been celebrated. They've never been given their flowers while they've been here, basically. Do you know what I mean? It's taken them, they have in a way, people could disagree with me about that, but it's taken them for them to die, for then all of a sudden to get praise from, and again, I'm not going to name names, but certain brands and organisations that are at the top echelons of like now dance music, let alone house music. They never shouted about them when they was alive. They never told you about the amazing catalogue. Phil Asher has got a catalogue as good, if not better, than any other UK house producer, not just soulful house producer. Like, go and tell me something else. Someone go, oh, what about Joey Negro, Dave Lee? Again, catalogue as big as anything, but look at Phil's as well. And it hasn't been really fully, it took him for him to die for people to come out. And the reason why, and this is another thing that, again, I'm a bit of a pupil from the school of Trouble, when he was fierce against things like this. It's like they never shouted about like them when they was doing what they were doing. Like, it takes you to die. For you to die, all of a sudden, the reason why they shout about it is because it becomes on trend. You see what it's like when Paul passed and when Phil died. In our world, in the whole house world, internationally, it takes over social media for a couple of days. Just all the hashtag trending, the whole things popping off, and all of a sudden you're seeing these massive figures, people coming up, and obviously everybody wants to say rest in peace and say what they're saying, but you know, the real ones know, like some of us, we didn't get their shine. Again, I don't want to name names and say, oh, if this one died tomorrow, if that one died tomorrow, because I don't want to put my mouth on things like that, but like, I've seen it with my friends, like they've had to die, and all of a sudden I'm seeing people coming out talking about them like they're the Messiah. And you're like, but you never did that when they was alive, not once. And it's proven that you didn't do it once. And now all of a sudden it took man to die for you to say, oh my God, did you? It's just like, that's the kind of way it's gone to now, do you know?
Yeah, I'm someone that gets riled up at things like that myself. And I remember when Frankie Knuckles passed away, and it's one of them crazy things where I saw some people were posting things and blah, blah, but then I saw other people like, who was Frankie Knuckles? And I'm like,
Is he a boxer? Yeah, I know. Yeah, Frankie Knuckles, mate.
Sounds like a fucking character from Lockstock or something. Do you know what I mean? But
that's it, yeah.
But no, yeah, it's something that bugs me, where I'm just like, and you know, again, like I remember, as I say, I remember when MK came back on the scene, and everyone was saying, "Oh, who's this guy?" And I'm like, he made some of the most.
Thought like Jamie Jones put MK in the game and stuff like that,
mate. And he made some of the most seminal house records, like early on, you know, with like coming off the back of like his relationship with Kevin Saunderson and whatnot. And it's like the guy, when he was like, I think he was like 18 when he made Burning, bruv. Like,
yeah, he was well young, 17.
That's bananas. Yeah. And I haven't spoken to him for a couple of years, but I remember when he first started coming back around, and he wasn't quite as superstar as he is now. I spoke to him a few times. along the way. I was actually the first DJ to have a copy of that Look Right Through that went to #1. Just because I badgered him. He said only a couple of people have got it. Him, Jamie Jones. He hadn't even given it to Defected at that time.
Wow.
Like, I was one of the only ones that
because it was the dub mix that went to #1, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a third dub mix as well, because he'd done 3 mixes.
Yeah, the third dub mix, that's it.
Yeah. So, but I remember chatting to him, and I was like, because he was there. We went to see him at Ministry, and it was like his first ever proper gig at a big rave. He'd never done one before, and Defected had booked him, and he was standing next to me at the bar with Elena, the vocalist. She actually sung "Burning" that night. And yeah, I've spoken to her a few times since, so she's really cool. But I remember messaging him. I was like, bro, like, you were standing right next to me, but I didn't kind of want to like encroach on the space. He's like, nah, Jay, he's like, next time, like, just come up to me, blah, blah, blah. And he was really cool. And I was thinking, this guy's a legend. He's that humble. He's that polite. And there's people out there asking me who the hell he is. And then the next thing, they're posting that meme of the geezer dancing to his song at the car. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, the fella that's like dancing in the street, and they don't, and it doesn't compute.
And they all think they know him, and I know it's crazy.
It doesn't compute, and people don't, as you say, you know, it's a thing with Paul, and it's a thing with Phil, where people don't understand like the levels that these guys and the energy that and the blood, sweat, and the tears, as you say, that these people put in. And I just again, I hark back to it. It's something I really hope comes out of not just this episode, but the rest of the podcast that I'm hoping to put together as well. You know, I really hope that we can open a few eyes and you know, share the experience and everything that's gone on, but also give people a bit of an education. You know.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. It's good to talk about it for real, because it's like those sort of people, especially Paul and Phil, they would definitely want this like little bits of information and stories to get passed down, and because they were teachers as well at the end of the day, you know. So yeah, it's good to talk about it, man.
I mentioned that that post that you mentioned about with the picture of Phil kind of just chilling there in the background. I think was it in Rome? What was the story for anyone who hasn't got or you on the socials and that? What was the story behind that? Because I had a little chuckle at the idea of like a really early kind of midday, like not a dead set, but you know, them sets where you're kind of struggling to. That's what it sounded like to me. It was one of them sets where you weren't really on it, but having someone like that there sort of made you enjoy. What was the deal with that?
Well, it was in a big festival that we used to do called IPM Rome. It was IPM Rome, and it was like over 3 or 4 days, and like the main centerpiece was this pool party that would start at like fucking 11 a.m. right, and go on till like midnight, and then everyone would go off and like eat in between or whatever, and then it would go off into like the clubs and stuff. So all DJs in our scene, like the biggest people, would play there. And I knew I was going to be doing 3 days later on the beach, one of the after parties of the night. But when I got the timings for that day, I was playing like the second set. So like the Italians were like doing the first 2 hours, then I was coming on. And I remember I was having a little moan about it. Phil going, oh man, I'm playing too early. He goes, oh, don't listen, son, mate, it'll be rammed by the time you come off. Don't worry. He goes, you don't know what they're like over here. And obviously he's well thoroughbred playing through Italy. I'd only been playing in Italy for like a few years by then. And like Neil and that was all playing over there. There's only representing England. There was probably like me, Neil, Phil, maybe like Joe Negro would go, but then you'd have like all of the big boys over there, from like fucking Louis to like all of them. Like even Timmy Regis for the night used to play. Even Martin Solveig. This festival was crazy. It wasn't just our time. I remember one of the sickest sets I ever saw. Listen to this, right? That same time I went, just give an idea what this festival was like. One of the night parties, we went to this terrace plateau. The backdrop was the Colosseum, bruv. I'm not joking you could have a piss against the Colosseum if you wanted to. And then basically Tony Humphreys played, right? And Tony's like God in Italy, yeah? So Tony Humphreys played like 2-3 hours on this outdoor Italian, the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. One evening, everyone's like floating around, drinking wine, eating food. Yeah, I'm walking around bunning fucking cocktails and all that, yeah? And then Black Coffee's going to play. And Black Coffee wasn't as like massive as he was now. It was just like after he'd done Superman, but he was huge still. And I was watching, I remember I was having a little chat with him before he went on, and I thought, how the fuck, what's he going to do after Tony? Because Tony was playing like straight house, like into his bit of New Jersey garagey, bit more into the bangy stuff. But obviously we all know how Coffee's going to play. And the Italians hadn't really got a taste of like proper Italian house. They're all on it now, but this was like back then. So anyway, but he came on and just like done a madness, just decimated the place. But going back to that, so that one of the, I was featuring at the pool party in in the day early. So Phil was like, don't worry, man. Like, don't worry, son. I'll be there to see you. And I was like, really? What? You're going to come and watch me that early at 1 o'clock? He said, don't worry. By the time you come off, it'll be rammed. And he said, don't worry. I'll come and have a little espresso in the morning next to you. And he was there. Like when I turned up, I got there. But when I got there, it was only like a few hundred people like milling around by the pool or whatever. And yeah, it was so funny because you see that picture of me and I'm like looking over like that onto the CDJ. That day, like it was so hot in Rome that I couldn't see anything what I was selecting on the CDJ. And that was the day that I changed. I had plastic like TDK USB sticks. I had a pink one, right? Fuck knows why, and a blue one. I'll never forget the sun melted it. After that set, I went to take it out and it just melted. So when I went to take it out, the plastic came out and the USB stayed in the thing. And this Italian sound engineer, he said, oh, this is why you have to have the metal USB, the metal. I'm like, what? Metal USBs? I've never seen it. He goes, oh, you play internationally to melt in the sun. And I was like, right. And he had to get a pair of fucking tweezers like that and take my USB out of the thing.
Jesus.
In that picture, when Phil, you can see Phil's like biting his nails like that. You see it? He's like sitting there like that. And he's got his coffee next to him. And I don't know, there must have been something that I was doing there that he was thinking about. I don't know, I might have been doing an obscure loop or something like that. Because he had one of them, you know, when they say a picture captures 1,000 words or whatever, there was that sort of like look that Phil would give when he was like deep in thought, like chewing on one of his nails. But again, like I said, that's like one of my idols who became a friend, but then he's actually turned out for me. You're talking like 2013 this was, but I'd known him for like years before that. But to turn out, that's what he was like. You know what I mean? He told me the night before, don't worry, I'll be there in the morning. No one else fucking came early doors in the morning. There was none of my other friends there watching me. He turned up and went, you know. And again, it's like you need to know that always as a DJ, never get negative about whatever time you're playing, unless you're getting proper mugged off by a promoter, but just take your chance. And when you take your chance, like that morning, like I was hyped because I was in Italy. I wanted to go smash down, but I couldn't because it was still, I was playing 2 hours. They always make you play 2 hours minimum in Italy. So I mean, in London, all these promoters, if you're watching now, making a DJ play an hour, it's a fucking waste of time, mate. Seriously. It's the only place. Well, like, it's even gone less than an hour now. I get booked to play for half an hour, get promoted, say, you do it for half the money. It's like, no. I actually play for the same money for 2 hours. And they get confused about that. They don't realise it, you know.
It's not necessarily about pounds per minute. It's a case of like you're performing. It's a performance. Like it's a performance art. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. If you're serious about your craft, you're coming to put on a set to entertain people. You're getting what you're paying for. It ain't about like you can come in half an hour, bruv. If I'm playing proper house music and I'm warming into it, I've only played
like 5 tunes.
5 or 6 tunes in the first half an hour just to warm up my set, bruv. Like, do you know what I mean? It ain't garage where I'm coming in and dropping this, dropping that, dropping this, dropping that.
Yeah.
In, 30-second clips. Like, yeah, no, I get it. I just wanted to hear the full story of that though, man, because it's just but that is really cool that someone, again, someone you look up to becomes a peer and they actually put in the effort to not just be someone that's around you, but also so genuine support as well, which
1,000,000%.
It's not common, bruv. It really is not common, like in any scene. It's not just, and I've flirted in between different genres and that, and been on bare stations and worked with bare different promotions and that. It's not common. It really isn't. And it's great to hear. And rest in peace, Flash. It was
definitely, man.
I couldn't believe it when I heard it. I remember I went on Twitter and a couple of people were talking about it. I was like, no. Like,
Oh, no, it was very sad. And obviously, again, like with the greatest respect to Phil's, but like, I know his family well, like his son. I know his son Marvin, who's 20 years old, and like, he died suddenly. It wasn't like, with Paul. Paul had been ill for years. We'd watched him, like I said, like again, for the greatest respect, Paul had fought against cancer like more than most men would ever be able to stand up against. He had like parts of his ribs and lungs and all sorts of treatment in the world. Whereas Phil, he wasn't ill. He just went to sleep one night and had a heart attack in his sleep. And that, again, is kind of like the last conversation I had with him was only about a few days before it, where we were talking about my label, and I was saying that I was scared to like launch my label, and not scared, but I was just saying I'm a bit dubious at this time during lockdown, because it's like, how's the music going? And he's just like, fuck it, son, just get the music out there. If it's got you've got good songs, like with the thing with Raf, like people tap into it. And if you're buzzing about it, he used to say to me, look, if you're buzzing about it, Like, if you're getting a bit of goosebumps from what you're doing, then let's hope that the people that you're putting out to will feel the same, feel you do. So sometimes you need to hear that. Like, I don't listen to no one. People who know me well, I don't listen to take advice from people. I just do what I'm doing. I've always done that. But there is the odd person, like I say, these characters have been talking to me. Like, if they say something to me, I do listen to them, because they're people that are guiding me through, and they're also people that are doing it with a genuine heart. There's a lot of people in this industry that will tell you to do things because they know it's the wrong thing for you to do.
Yeah, and there's people that will deliberately block you like that. You're absolutely right, and yeah, like you say, when you
listen to them, I wouldn't be even sitting in now talking to you. You know the amount of people that told me the stuff to do. Oh, leave Soul Heaven. Stop playing soulful house. You know, you need to jump on this minimal tech house thing. This all dead. But look at them all now. 3 years later, now you've got all these fucking tech house minimal DJs used to be. And I don't want to sound like I'm being negative, but you're all now playing disco or something. And now you don't play, you're not true to your sound. They're like wagonists, what I call them. They're these DJs, wherever the hot sound is in London, they'll play. You know, like 2 years ago, you're playing minimal tech house. Now all of a sudden you're playing disco. But you was telling me that what I was doing was dead and buried at the time.
Yeah, someone mentioned that to me. I was having a conversation with an old DJ mate recently, and they were saying to me, "Oh, so because I was putting up a couple of like disco house sets, and they were saying, oh, so what is that where you play now?" And I was like, "That's what I've always played. I've got mixes going back 15 years where I took my dad's records and my dad's CDs, and I made 80s mixes with the original 12 inches of those records that are now being remixed. So like, if you go on, I've got a SoundCloud page. If you just go and type in "So You Think You're Old School" on SoundCloud, there's 3 mixes on there, and they're the biggest mixes I've ever done. I've never had a reaction like it, but they're the original, like Fatback Band, Sister Sledge, like all of those records. I was mixing that then, and someone said it to me, and I was like, no, I agree with you. Like, I've never jumped on it because it was just to jump on it. Like, that for me has always been the sound anyway. Do you know what I mean? But I agree that
it always comes back to that.
Yeah,
it always comes back to it.
What done me was that kind of like techno kind of scene, and I was seeing people that I knew that were playing garage, and that all of a sudden they know everything about Ricardo Villalobos or some tech DJ. They're like, "Oh, he's the greatest thing since sliced bread." I was like, "Bruv, you liked EZ last month." Like, I don't like. That now you've got a fucking Hawaiian shirt and you're doing a fist pump. Like, you know, like everyone. Don't get me wrong. When it comes to being a fan of something, whatever you like. That's your business. But yeah, I mean, there has been a lot of that in the last few years. But
each to their own, though. Each to their own.
But as I mentioned to you earlier, though, I do think though, as I said to you earlier, I do think there's going to be. I don't know if I could call it like a resurgence of soulful house or whatever, because it never really left, but I did notice that when I was going through the charts, I was like, "Rah!" Like, there is a lot more soulful house that's charting currently on Traxsource and Beatles than I've seen in quite a while. So, you know,
I think it's the mood of people as well, because I've been studying it. It's like everybody's locked down now. Everybody's in a little bit more of an easy listening mood. Like, the club bangers just ain't there on Traxsource, like you say. You're not seeing what you'd normally see because it's not a DJ. It's still a DJ's market, but it's not a like active DJ's market. It's people doing like. You know, that's why I think it's a good time to be experimental with music. That's why, to be honest, I'm releasing more of the soulful stuff on my label first. That's why I jumped Wes's track to number 2, because it's quite soulful and chilled.
You've done the other mix of the latest record as well, right? The more stripped back, like the 119 version. Like,
yeah, that's nice. Yeah, the 119 mix.
That's really nice.
Thank you. Yeah, so that was again, because what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to make my label represent me as a person. If you listen to me play, I know we center around soulful US garage or whatever, but I kind of like, when I play, I don't just stick to one sound. Sometimes I might play a bit more Afro-y, a bit more garage housey or whatever it is. I'm not just one dimensional, so I'm trying to make the label look a bit like that. So with the first release, Raise You Up, it's like a straight soulful sort of classic sounding original with Raf. Then I strip it down, make it a little bit more rootsy, Afro-y, like I've got the live percussion on it and stuff like that. And again, I've took it down to sub 120 BPM, which is, if you go to South Africa and places like that, that's the groove of the music. It's not like 123 or 124 in them places. Like, the real Afro house music is 120 below, yeah? So, and then there's another mix from a guy called True to Life, who's doing a lot of remixes for me, who's kind of like, he's quite big in the garage house sort of sub-genre. And his track done really well, actually. It got premiered on, we had a world premiere of his mix on Kiss FM by Sam Divine, which is, you know, it's a big deal. It's like the first track of the label. And again, because he's a bit more garage house, he's a bit more bumpy and skippy. she's got a new show on Kiss and she's done a world premiere of it. And it's mad because having someone like her playing a record on Kiss, from then, it was like that was a great piece of marketing.
If she happens to be listening, to this, I've got to say, big up Sarah Devine. She'll know what I'm talking about. We go way back with that one. Big up. Hashtag Sarah Devine. Big up. But I did.
So you got confused with Sarah Devine.
Do you know what happened with that? Have you ever seen the story of that?
Nah.
Some geezer, bro, it's so funny, right? And it's a running joke between me and my mates. But some geezer was at a festival when he went on either Facebook or Twitter and took a picture of her, and it says "I am Sam Devine" and then big like LED lights behind her. And the geezers took a picture of her and wrote "Sarah Devine banging set," right? And like we were pissing ourselves for months afterwards. We'd go to raves out of our nut. And I remember going to a Masters at Work gig at Ministry, and there were these girls in a pub across the road before, and they were talking, and I'd do things like, yeah, I'm wearing a Masters at Work t-shirt, and these birds are talking to me, and they're like, oh yeah, so you go to Ministry? I'm like, yeah, I really love Men at Work, you know, that track Man Down Under and all that, like, I really love. So we just started taking it, and just anyone's name was always something different. Do you know what I mean? So, but then I went to Southport Weekender, and she was there. She weren't playing. I think it's when she debuted, but she was standing there chatting to a couple of other people that I know. And I walked up to her and I went, Sarah. And I'd already been bantering her on Twitter about it. And she we were just like, both of us just started laughing for about 20 minutes. But yeah, if she does lock in, big up Sarah Devine.
Big up Sarah, man.
But yeah, no, I heard that it got played on her show. And obviously I saw the video you posted in that. So
yeah,
it's big, mate. It's big. I'm so, again, you know, we've come full circle, which is great. But yeah, I'm so happy you're doing it, and I really I can't wait to see what the future holds for it. And I'm fully on board, mate. I'll be buying, listening, streaming, everything. Before we finish up, because we've gone quite long. It's been I see what the thing is with these podcasts is it goes so quick.
Of course, man.
Don't even realize. Before we finish up, we did sort of start at the show mention that the new bookings are coming through and stuff, and things are going on. What's already lined up for you this summer?
So there's like gonna start. So let me just try and have a look at what I've got down here.
I did just see on your Instagram before we went on. There's a thing in the woods, and that looks mental.
Forbidden Forest. So that's gonna be like in. I don't know why I've got no service. So yeah, the Forbidden Forest is going to be like, I think it's the 4th of September. It's weird because a lot of the bookings I was supposed to be doing, right, they're just now getting moved around all the time. Some of them got moved into this year. Now some of them have been put into next year, like Soul Fusion. I'm going to Portugal with a big event called Soul Fusion that I play for in Birmingham quite a lot. They're going to Portugal in the Algarve. That Forbidden Forest thing, that's going to be on the 4th of September. Again, your two mates, MK Sam Devine in the Defected 10 with Low Stepper and all them lot. Then you got a Bode. A Bode got a tent there. Ellie's in there. Ellie Cox in there. Then you got a D&B arena tent with, like, again, people talked about earlier, Kenny Ken, Nicky Black Market. Then you got a next tent, like that. Don't know what that is. Maybe dubstep and that. The Crew Cast. Don't know who they are. And then you got Soul Heaven 10. It's wicked. This Forbidden Forest is like a mashup. So you got like Defected, Abode, couple drum and bass, couple dubstep. Then you got like us lot, Soul Heaven. So with me, it's like Grant Nelson, me, Mighty Mouse, Natasha Kitty Cat, like, and then a few others. So, and then also I've got, I'll tell you another good thing actually. It's called the She All Dayer, SHE All Dayer. That's going to be on the 24th of June. And that's out like, again, I don't even know where it is. It might be Kent somewhere, but out in the countryside. It'll be an outdoor event. Anyone that's looking, that's wicked as well. And I'm going to be playing there with people like the Journeymen. You know who the Journeymen are?
Yeah.
Who else plays there with me now? Can't think. And then I'm going to be doing in August, like the 20, there was another one I just announced today. 29th of August, which will be on Brighton Beach.
Sick.
I've got a 20, and then a couple of things with Jay, and I've got 24th of July that I'm going to be doing something in a club called the Orange Yard. So if anyone wants to that's going to be literally 24th of July. That's going to be a big one. I'm going to announce the date of that. We've got something quite special. That's actually going to be my own event that I'm doing. I'm starting to get into, because Raising Records is basically, this is how I'm doing Raising Records. So it's a record label, then it's an artist agency as well, and it's an event. So my raising parties will be like, and no disrespect, again, not naming names, I'm not just going to be like these other promoters and booking the same old DJs all the time on a roundabout thing. But what I will do is, whoever's on my label is basically going to get booked, and that's it. If they're a DJ, like Wes Wynn, see Wes is like one of the most underrated DJs on the London circuit, in my opinion. That's why I tried to help Wes a lot. Got him on board again with Jalen. You helped me. You got me on board with Jalen. Thank you again very much for that. Jalen, I've got to shout out Jalen because he's like, a lot of good, great things, a lot of fucked up shit happened in lockdown, but then a lot of great things happened to me, and I met a lot of amazing people as well, and he was one of them. He's definitely like, for someone of 24 years old to be out in the scene and doing what he's been doing and growing a brand during a pandemic, like he's got a big future ahead of him. You know?
Yeah, it's one of them ones where Eamon's known him for a little bit, and he said to me, he rang me up like last summer when he was starting to be able to do events again. He said, look, he'd already been talking to me about Jalen, because he was like, look, you two musically would get on, like, you get the same sound, blah blah blah. You got to meet this kid. He's sick, and I remember Eamon rang me up one day and he's like, Jalen's talking about like actually booking like a decent, like proper decent DJ, rather than, no disrespect to the ends, because I know a lot of them guys, but rather than just like guys from the ends, you know what I mean? That, they're decent DJs and that, but he wanted to go in a more, a more serious direction. He said to me, who do you think that would do it? And I was just like, bro, I'll just ask Sai, innit? Like, Sai's the guy. Like, there's no one I would trust more to actually be reliable to come and do a good job, but also he's a good guy. So, that was that. And obviously the fact that you two hit it off, I remember sitting, I was reading, like, you put up a post about how good the event was and that, and I was like, boom, that's sick. Like, that for me was like, I've done that a lot in the past. Like, not it's not a blowing my own trumpet thing, but I've always, like, even just in terms of like my day job and stuff, I always connect people, man. I just seem to know like who would work well with who. So that's great. And yeah, I'm looking forward to, once things go back to proper normality, Jalen, he knows I'm coming. He knows I'm coming. So I'll be down there spinning alongside the pair of you, and obviously Wes and Eamon and whoever else is involved at that time. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the progression that Wes finally gets to make now. He's got releases coming out. I mean, that Love's Taken Over tune was sick. And yeah, you're right. He has been one of the best DJs around for quite a while. And he used to play, I've done one show with him. He used to play on Image/Ice Cold when I was on there. And we'd done a show together one time, and he was just a really cool guy to be around as well, So I'm really happy that he's on board, and I'm really looking forward to what you guys do together.
Definitely.
So yeah, in terms of all the rest of your bookings and that, where can people catch you on the socials to follow what you're doing?
Just at Sai Says everywhere, SYSEZ. That's Instagram mainly is the main one, and obviously Facebook. And then also you can follow my label, which is Raising Records. So I'm everywhere just at Raising Records, or soundcloud.com/Raising Records on there.
And your radio show, when's your radio show?
My radio show is every other Thursday from 9 p.m. on My Soul, like syndicate on My House Radio as well. And yeah, so it's every other Thursday. So one Thursday is me, and the other Thursday is the legendary Booker T.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, so we rotate. We've done that for years. I've done that now for like 10 years or more. Like,
yeah, I caught your show, was it this week or last week was it Lee? Was it Lee Wilson?
Lee Wilson, the singer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a wicked show with him. That was amazing. He's like an incredible singer-songwriter from America. One of the busiest guys that I know as a writer, as a singer. And he, I think he was like one of the top, like maybe number fourth or fifth vocalist of the year. Like Traxsource do their thing every year.
Yeah.
It's fucking Grammys, in it, for the Soulful House world. So but he got up there, he done well, and it was great having him on the show. It's just like I've been trying to do more content-based stuff on my show, so it's not just like listen to my radio show, it's just me mixing for 2 hours. Like I invite different DJs on to do a guest mix, or I might speak to Lee for a bit and obviously showcase some of I'll plumb his music in along the way. He's got some incredible music out at the moment. And just like, yeah, again, I interviewed him, and I'm talking to a lot of people now because I'm trying to show other artists, and not just artists, people that listen to the show, like what other people are doing during lockdown to stay motivated, because we've all been fucked, mate.
Yeah.
And we all need a little bit of advice or guidance, or it could be just one little thing that you hear. like, oh, I've been cooking a bit more, or I've been working out a bit more, or I've been walking a bit more, going out on your bike or whatever you hear, you know?
Yeah, reading's been a big thing for me, but obviously I'll be putting the books down a little bit and doing a few more of these shows, especially given how fun this one's been. So I can't thank you enough, mate, for jumping on.
Thank you, man.
And yeah, I really appreciate it, bruv. And hopefully when we get back to normal, I'll be able to get a little portable mixer and a couple of studio mics, and we'll sit down somewhere and rehash over, you know, the progress of the label and stuff, and how crazy this summer's going to be for a lot of people. I think a lot of sore heads and South American supplements. So thank you very much, mate.
Yeah, thank you, man. Big up, man.